Chapter 1620. The assassin organization's information came faster than others, and Shi Shang quickly received the news. There was indeed a problem with the royal family. All the members of the royal family were controlled, but the people from the assassin organization did not know who was controlling them. They only knew that those people seemed to be looking for something, forcing the royal family to send people to infiltrate the various countries. Therefore, the current situation in the Shu kingdom was not very good. However, a member of the royal family was controlled by someone. Were the members of the royal family all idiots? Your Majesty, the imperial tutor's corpse has been found. Ling Yi brought Shi Shang a neither bad nor bad disappearance. So what if you found it? You still want to pull it back for me to see? Shi Shang did not care. After all, she already knew that the imperial tutor would die. Ling Yi was used to Shi Shang speaking like this, so he pretended not to hear and continued, Your Majesty, we also found a few corpses. From the looks of it, they look like people from the Shu kingdom. Oh. Shi Shang became interested. The one who saved the imperial tutor was from Shu kingdom. It should be, but I don't know why they seem to have a conflict. From the looks of it, it should be the people from the Shu kingdom who attacked the imperial tutor first. After that, I don't know what happened, but the imperial tutor and those people are all dead. Ling Yi carefully looked at Shi Shang. Your Majesty, what do you think the Shu kingdom is trying to do? The Shu kingdom's military strength was not strong, and was even worse than Feng Wan's. If such a country wanted to cause trouble, what could they do? I don't know. I'm not from Shu kingdom, so how could I know what the people from Shu kingdom want to do? However, in terms of causing trouble, of course, this baby was the one who caused trouble. Ling Yi had been paying attention to the movements of the Shu kingdom, but his harvest was average and he did not obtain any useful information. On the other hand, there was movement from King Yu's side, so Ling Yi immediately reported the news to Shi Shang. King Yu and King Huainan have secretly met in the capital. You all know, how can it be a secret? Shi Shang rolled his eyes. The corner of Ling Yi's mouth twitched. Your Majesty, we did monitor them in advance. If not for this, we would not have discovered them. They are very careful. Shi Shang propped up his chin. His calm eyes reflected the dazzling light outside the hall, flickering with layers of light spots. His tone was so indifferent that one could not hear the slightest fluctuation. What are you going to do in the capital? I don't know yet. They only knew that Duke of Huainan had come to the capital, but they didn't know his purpose. Your Majesty, what should we do now? Send troops to arrest them, Shi Shang said matter-of-factly. That's it. Why don't you send a message to her first, telling her that we're going to arrest her and ask her to run away? F***CK, what else do you want to do if you don't do that? He wasn't even active in catching a person, so it served him right that he had time to escape. Ling Yi, Your Majesty, why are you attacking people whenever you don't like them? She was just asking. She didn't mean anything else. Your Majesty, on what grounds? This was not an ordinary official. This was the Duke of Huainan and King Yu. In the Huainan region, this Duke of Huainan still had a lot of prestige. Shi Shang glanced at Ling Yi. Ling Yi suddenly had a premonition that this person was about to say something incredible. Sure enough, in the next second, she heard the person above say in an extremely arrogant tone, What reason do you need? If you want to capture me, then capture me. I am the Empress. I am the world. Ling Yi accepted the order and went down. Now that the commander's seal was in His Majesty's hands, she could be willful. The Duke of Huainan had just finished talking with King Yu, and the moment he walked out, he was met with a dense group of imperial guards. The walls on the ground were completely surrounded, and it was impossible for him to escape. Looking at the Duke of Huainan's posture, it was unknown whether he was angered or angry, but he actually raised his head and laughed out loud. King Yu was a step behind, but she had also seen the people on the wall. She would not be mistaken about the imperial guards with bows and crossbows. She actually dared to send the imperial guards to kill them like this? On second thought, she even dared to kill Dai Su in one night, which caught Dai Su's party off guard and made them lose their leader. In the chaos, they had no power to fight back, so she easily took back so much military power. Now that she had unexpectedly attacked them, it didn't seem to be an accident. Duke of Huainan? King Yu took a few steps out of the courtyard, and the Duke of Huainan stood back to back. She wants to kill us, let's rush out? With so many imperial guards, she didn't bring many people with her. Furthermore, they were in the imperial city, so King Yu knew that the chances of them rushing out were very small. However, if they didn't give it their all, who would know if they really didn't have a chance? The Duke of Huainan was probably thinking the same thing as King Yu. He took out a signal flare from his sleeve and shot it into the sky. As soon as the signal flare went up, the imperial guards standing on the wall began to shoot arrows. The arrows were as dense as raindrops, shooting towards them with a cold glint. Those arrows were smeared with poison, and the result of being stabbed was self-evident. If they didn't die, they would be crippled. No matter which one it wasn't the result they wanted. The imperial guards had the advantage in terms of numbers. Although King Yu and the Duke of Huainan could block the arrows, after a round of battle, they couldn't hold on any longer. The arrows from the imperial guards on the wall never stopped, as if they didn't need money. Duke of Huainan, how long will it take for your reinforcements to arrive? Several of King Yu's men had already fallen. If this continued, they would soon be caught by the imperial guards. The Duke of Huainan looked in a certain direction. I'm afraid I won't be able to come. What? King Yu was shocked. Why can't they come? Didn't you say they were nearby? However, the Duke of Huainan did not explain to her. He suddenly turned around and stabbed his weapon into a person beside King Yu, and before that person could react to what had happened, he quickly pulled it out and stabbed it into the other two people's bodies. A series of smooth movements, from killing the three people to seizing the shocked King Yu, took only 2 breaths of time. Stop! The Duke of Huainan shouted at the imperial guards. One of the imperial guards waved his hand, and the imperial guards on the wall immediately stopped shooting. The dense arrows disappeared, and the space fell silent. The air was still filled with the smell of gunpowder, and there was a sense of oppression and killing intent. King Yu's face was ashen. Duke of Huainan, what are you doing? Even if he was beaten to death, King Yu would never have thought that the Duke of Huainan would take her hostage to save his life at this time. The Duke of Huainan looked straight at the imperial guards. Let me see His Majesty. Duke of Huainan, you entered the capital without His Majesty's summons, and even met with King Yu in private. His Majesty's order is to execute you on the spot. The imperial guard said with a straight face, Duke of Huainan, do you have any last words? I want to see His Majesty. The Duke of Huainan raised his voice. I'll help you catch King Yu. Although I can't make up for it, it shouldn't be difficult for me to meet His Majesty, right? The imperial guard frowned. After all, he was a figure who had once dominated a region. His reverence for the strong made the imperial guard loosen up a little. He sent someone to report to Ling Yi. Ling Yi had personally led the imperial guards here. At this moment, he was not far away and quickly followed them over. The Duke of Huainan wants to see His Majesty? Ling Yi's face was filled with heroic spirit, causing people to be involuntarily intimidated by her aura. However, this was useless against the Duke of Huainan. When the Duke of Huainan went to the battlefield, Ling Yi was still born. The Duke of Huainan raised his head and said word by word, Yes, I want to see His Majesty. I have something very important to report to His Majesty. Chapter 1621. The Duke of Huainan insisted on seeing the Shi Sheng. Ling Yi couldn't make up her mind for a moment, so she sent someone to the palace to ask the Shi Sheng. Finally, she got the order to let the Duke of Huainan enter the palace. King Yu was directly locked up in the dungeon. From the beginning to the end, she still didn't understand how things developed like this. The Duke of Huainan was taken to the imperial study. The Shi Sheng was casually sitting on the dragon throne eating melon seeds. The dragon table in front of him was littered with all kinds of memorials. If a minister came in and saw this, he would be so angry that he would have a heart attack. Have you ever seen an emperor like this? Which emperor's table was so messy? Ling Yi skillfully tidied up the memorials, leaving a place for the Shang to slap the table. The Duke of Huainan kept his head down. "This sinner greets your majesty." The Shang looked at the Duke of Huainan a few times. In his heart, he quickly compared the information he knew with the person in front of him. He was almost 50 years old, and there were a few strands of white hair around his ears. But from the looks of his figure, he was still old and strong. "What do you want to see me for?" "I'm very busy." "Hurry up and say it." The Shang continued to eat melon seeds. The whole imperial study was filled with the sound of cracking. In such an environment, it made people's scalp tingle. "Your Majesty, this sinner wants to talk to you alone." "Drag him out," the Shang ordered without changing his expression. Every time the protagonist talked to someone alone, he would be plotted against. "This baby is not stupid. Don't even think about talking alone. There are always idiots who want to harm this baby. I'm afraid." The imperial guards immediately stepped forward and dragged the Duke of Huainan out. The Duke of Huainan was dumbfounded. "Your Majesty, what this minister wants to say is very important. It is not appropriate for too many people to know. If you are not at ease, you can leave the people you trust." The Shang watched the Duke of Huainan being dragged away. When he reached the door, the Duke of Huainan grabbed the door regardless of his image. "Your Majesty," this minister said. The Shang waved his hand and asked them to drag the person back. When the Duke of Huainan returned to the center of the hall, her heart was still in a mess. She quietly raised her head to look at the Empress sitting on the dragon throne. She didn't look dignified at all, but she didn't feel anything wrong. She seemed to be born with a kind of king's aura. In the past, those who sat on the dragon throne were all incomparably dignified. Their backs were straight, and none of the empresses were as casual as she was. He remembered that the last time he saw her was when she was still a few years old. She was such a cute little girl back then. How did she become? The Duke of Huainan took a deep breath. "Your Majesty, do you know why the first princess was the most popular, but in the end, it was you who ascended the throne?" "I know. Is there still a need for you to say anything?" These people were just spouting nonsense. The corner of the Duke of Huainan's mouth twitched, and then his face became solemn. "I was going to tell you this in the end, but I didn't expect it to be so early." When Ling Yi heard that they were going to talk about some secret news, he hurriedly withdrew some people out, leaving only his trusted aides in the hall. The Shang took out a handful of melon seeds and began to listen to the story again. Because the late Empress was the first princess, she was given the title of Crown Princess when she was very young. At that time, one person from each family was chosen and sent into the palace to be chosen by the late Empress as her study companion. I was sent into the palace at that time. At that time, I was inconspicuous, but I didn't expect the late Empress would choose me. When this news came out, most of the family members were very happy, because this meant that I would be the favorite person of the future Empress. When one person achieves the Tao, all the chickens and dogs will follow, and the family will go to a higher level. But there were also some people who were not happy, such as my father, because I am not a girl. Ling Yi's eyes widened. His face that was always serious, at this time, showed a very shocked expression. The Duke of Huainan was not a girl. The Shang was calm and continued to eat melon seeds. Seeing that the Shang was so calm, Ling Yi did not continue to lose his composure, and tried to suppress the shock on his face. The Duke of Huainan saw that the Shang did not show any other emotions, and then continued, "My father, in order to not lose his position in the family, let someone take advantage of the time when my mother was unconscious to bribe the midwife to tell my mother that I was a girl. Later, in order to hide the fact that I was a man, my father did a lot of things, and finally let me live as a woman. Until I was chosen as the late Empress's study companion, but the imperial edict had already been sent down. My father had no choice but to send me into the palace. He told me that I must not expose my identity. Once I was found out, it would be the crime of deceiving the emperor, and it would be serious enough to implicate my whole family. At first, it was not bad in the palace. No one found anything wrong with me. Once, the late Empress sneaked out of the palace to play and encountered an assassin. The late Empress and I were forced into a cave by the assassin. The late empress was injured and had a high fever. The Duke of Huainan paused, skipping the details. It was there. The late empress knew that I was a man, and I thought I was going to die. The crime of deceiving the emperor is very serious. But the late empress did not pursue me, but helped me to hide it. Probably because we kept the same secret, and went through life and death together on the battlefield, the two of us unconsciously developed feelings for each other. The late empress promised me that when she took over the throne, she would give me a new identity, and welcome me into the palace to be conferred the title of empress. The Duke of Huainan's expression was slightly bitter. Unfortunately, too many things happened later, and I did not wait for the day when the late empress fulfilled her promise. As the empress, there were too many things that were not up to her. After the late empress ascended the throne, the court officials had to appease and win her over. The number of people in her harem increased exponentially, and she had to take care of those people. The Duke of Huainan was a minister. Even if he knew that the person he liked was having sex with another man, he could only endure it. He knew that the late empress had no choice, and he could not blame her because she was the empress. She could not be willful. She shouldered the country, and the peace of the country. Every time they met, they could only meet in the court. Occasionally, the late empress would ask him to stay for business. She would hug him and say that she was very tired and wanted to leave this huge cage and fly away with him. But they both knew that it was impossible. The responsibility had already fallen on their shoulders, and they could not shirk it. After the war, the late empress was already the empress, and it was impossible for her to go to war with him. The Duke of Huainan could only lead the army to the border. When he came back victorious, it was the empress's wedding to welcome him. The position of the empress promised to him was given to someone else. The position that was promised to him was given to someone else. The Duke of Huainan had to smile and congratulate her, congratulating her for being conferred the title of empress. So you plan to rebel? Was this hatred born from love? The Duke of Huainan shook his head. From the beginning to the end, I did not plan to rebel. He looked up at the Shang. Because you are my daughter. How could I rebel against my own daughter? Huh. Wait a minute. This plot development is a bit wrong. Asterisk, this is a fake group. Little fairy, are you surprised? Ha ha ha. Let's vote. Cherub. Goodbye. Little fairy, why are you guys like this? Cherub, how is it? Little fairy. I am not happy. I need kisses and hugs. Cherub, vote. Little fairy, you guys actually despise me? You would rather vote than kiss and hug. Cherub, why are you so hard to please? Little fairy, I am a willful fairy. Cherub. Chapter 1622. After the late emperor established the Phoenix monarch, the Duke of Huainan stayed in the capital for a few years. The late emperor gave birth to the first princess and the second princess. When he heard that the late empress' palace had new people, the Duke of Huainan could no longer stay and took the initiative to resign from the border. The late emperor couldn't persuade him, so he could only let him go. However, not long after he left, he received an imperial edict telling him to return to the capital immediately. The person who came did not say anything, and the imperial edict told him to return quickly. The Duke of Huainan was worried that something would happen to the late emperor, so he immediately returned to the capital. When he returned to the capital, he saw the late emperor who was 5 months pregnant. It had been exactly 5 months since he left. This child was the third princess, Xianyang. The late emperor had a child with him, but he still had no status. Even if he entered the palace as someone else, it was impossible for the child to be raised by him. At the critical moment of the late emperor's birth, chaos broke out at the border. The Duke of Huainan was duty-bound to lead his troops to battle, just to give the emperor in his heart a golden age of peace. This war lasted for nearly 7 or 8 years. When he moved his troops back to the imperial court, he found that the situation in the imperial court was obscure and the late emperor was restrained by others. At that time, Dai Su had already appeared, and unknowingly, he had gathered a large number of ministers around him. Although he could not face the late emperor did not dare to touch her. the Duke of Huainan held a large number of troops in his hands. As soon as he returned to the capital, he was impeached by the ministers led by Dai Su. In order to protect him, the late emperor advised him to hand over his military power and go to Huainan. This area of Huainan had always been known as the most chaotic place in Fengyuan, and it was also difficult for Dai Su to interfere. The late emperor's meaning was very clear. He wanted to go to Huainan and subdue those people for his own use, waiting for an opportunity. However, this opportunity did not come until the late emperor died. Before the late emperor died, he dealt with the first princess and the second princess with an iron-blooded method of harming the enemy and sacrificing 1,000 of his own. He pushed Xianyang onto the throne because he knew that he would protect Xianyang's throne in Huainan. When the first princess rebelled, he took the opportunity to make Dai Su think that he was interested in the throne and revealed some of his strength. Although the rebellion had allowed Dai Su's party to grow stronger, Dai Su did not dare to act rashly. This kind of balance was the best result at that time. Right now, he was cooperating with King Yu in order to completely annihilate Dai Su's traitors. But he didn't expect that this little girl who only knew how to eat, drink, and play would have such unfathomable means. Dai Shudong didn't make any waves and was suppressed by her. So, none of you poisoned me? Shi Shang touched his chin. This was interesting. Neither the Duke of Huainan nor Dai Su poisoned them. Then who poisoned them? Poison? The Duke of Huainan was shocked and asked hurriedly, "What happened? Why haven't I heard anything about it?" Then he seemed to have thought of something. "What happened last time wasn't an accident. Was someone trying to kill you?" The time of the original owner's death was too short, and Dai Shudong deliberately blocked the news, so when the Duke of Huainan received the news, Shi Shang had already returned to the palace safely. Shi Shang did not continue the conversation and changed the topic. "Is that all you wanted to tell me?" The Duke of Huainan wanted to ask what was going on, but looking at Shi Shang's appearance, he was unable to ask for a moment. He opened his mouth and said after a long while, "I have a special force in my hands. It was given to me by the late emperor. This special force was secretly cultivated by the royal family and has been loyal to the empress for generations. It should have been given to you by the late emperor when you received the edict, but now I will return it to you." He had thought that this child still needed his protection, but he didn't expect that in the end, he would have no use for it at all. The Duke of Huainan took out a small whistle from his sleeve. This whistle can't be heard by ordinary people, but the messenger bird raised by the special force can hear it. If there is an order for the messenger bird to pass on, they will complete it. Ling Yi took the whistle and handed it to Shi Shang. Shi Shang held the whistle and looked at it, then ordered the Duke of Huainan to be taken away. The Duke of Huainan probably knew that she needed time to think about these things. Without any refutation, he followed the others. "Your Majesty," Ling Yi called out weakly. "Was this true or false? Try it and you will know." Shi Shang's mouth hooked up a strange smile. She cleaned the whistle with spiritual energy, then put it to her mouth and blew it. Sure enough, no sound came out, but Shi Shang felt that the spiritual energy in the air fluctuated, which proved that there was sound coming out. Soon Shi Shang heard a fluttering sound outside the window, and a moment later, there was the sound of a woodpecker pecking wood. Ling Yi went to open the window. A snow-white bird fluttered in from the window and directly landed on the dragon table in front of Shi Shang. It tilted its little head and looked at Shi Shang with its red little eyes. It was a very smart bird. Its appearance was a bit like a pigeon, but its feathers were much softer, and the tail feathers were bright red, yellow, and blue. Chirp, chirp. The bird chirped, as if it was urging Shi Shang. Shi Shang reached out and caught the bird. The bird fluttered twice. Chirp, chirp, chirp. "Why did you catch it?" It turned out to be a spiritual bird. Shi Shang pulled the bird's wings, ignoring the bird's protest. This bird's body was full of spiritual energy, so it could already be considered a spiritual bird, which was why it was so human-like. Shi Shang found a message tube on the bird's feather-covered foot. Shi Shang asked Ling Yi to write a few words and put it in, then let go of the fluttering bird. The bird jumped onto the table and shook its messy feathers. Seeing a few feathers shake out from its body, The bird immediately chirped angrily and fluttered to the ink slab next to it. After staining its claws with ink, it jumped onto the memorial on the table and stamped on it, leaving a series of bird footprints. Shishang, Ling Yi, chirp chirp chirp. Who told you to catch me? Humph. The bird was about to leave, but who knew that a pair of big hands would cover it? In the next second, its entire body was pressed into the ink. Its feathers were stained with a sticky ink, and it turned from a little white bird to a little black bird. Chirp chirp chirp. Chirp chirp chirp, do you think you're the only one who knows how to chirp? Shishang imitated it and chirped. If you dare to mess around again, I'll stew you to drink soup. The bird was so angry that it was trembling. It vigorously flapped its wings, flinging all the ink on its wings onto Shishang's body and face. Shishang, chirp chirp chirp. Humph. The bird twisted its butt and flew outside. Catch that bird for me. Shishang slammed the table and roared. The bird was so shocked by the roar that it almost fell from the sky. It obviously understood, so it sped up and flew out of the window. In a flash, it flew up to the roof. Once it was in the sky, it would not be so easy for the imperial guards to catch a bird. Ling Yi. He did not really understand His Majesty. Sometimes, he was even too lazy to care about people. Why was he so serious about a small animal now? Was it really okay to bully a small animal? You are the emperor. Pay attention to your status. Asterisk, pay attention to your status. Vote, vote, vote. Chapter 1623. Shishang returned to the palace with ink all over her body. Chen Bei looked at her with a strange expression. Shishang took off her clothes and threw them aside. Then, she washed her face. The ink was not easy to get, and Shishang could not wipe it clean after a long time. Help me. Shishang walked to Chen Bei's side with a wet towel. Chen Bei looked up at her. He seemed to be the only one in her eyes. Chen Bei's heart beat faster for some reason. He took the accordion back and caught the towel. Sit down. You're even more arrogant than me, the Empress. Shishang snorted, but her body obediently sat down. Chen Bei took the towel and gently wiped the ink on her face. He could not help but ask, "Why are you covered in ink?" She was an empress. Who would dare to splash ink on her? Shishang clenched her teeth. It's just a daring bird. Next time, I must catch it. Chen Bei's face was full of confusion. Bird? What bird? Why haven't you gone out recently? Shishang tilted her head. Don't you feel bored staying in the room all day? What's the difference between going out and staying in the room? Chen Bei asked. She would send someone to follow him. He might as well be more comfortable in the room. At least no one would be watching him in the room. Shishang held Chen Bei's hand. Chen Bei's body stiffened, but he quickly relaxed and allowed Shishang to take what she wanted. Perhaps it was because Chen Bei had been abnormally obedient in the past few days, but Shishang felt a little scared. She pinched Chen Bei's chin and raised it slightly. You're not really planning to please me and then find an opportunity to kill me, are you? Chen Bei's eyes flashed slightly. He turned his head and said, You didn't say it yourself. Shishang was silent for a moment. Suddenly, she leaned over and whispered in his ear, Then why don't we take it a step further and increase your chances? Chen Bei quickly grabbed her hand. His tone was hesitant. You promised me. Didn't I say that it was invalid? Shishang held his hand. Since you want to kill me, I'll give you a chance. Isn't that fair? Isn't it worthwhile to sacrifice something? Shishang's fingertips slid down his cheek to his collarbone, and finally pressed on his chest. She smiled confidently. And you don't reject me that much. When I kissed you, when did you really want to resist? She didn't know if it was because she had hit a sore spot, but Chen Bei suddenly struggled vigorously. Let me go. Seeing that he was about to get angry, Shishang restrained the playful expression on his face and let go of his hand. I was just teasing you. Don't worry, I won't want you for the time being. Chen Bei was skeptical. Why are you so disappointed? Shi Shang placed his hands on both sides of him and looked into his clear eyes. His eyes seemed to be filled with spring water, rippling into the bottom of his heart. Shi Shang was a little tempted, but he was more rational. Of course, he would charge more for other things. He would just treat it as interest. Chen Bei finally got up from the ground with his hand covering his bright red lips. He tugged at his clothes, which were messed up by the Shi Shang, and fled into the inner room. Something in his chest seemed to be about to jump out. Chen Bei calmed down the restlessness in his body. Suddenly, he heard a sound outside. He turned sideways and looked outside through the crack in the door. The woman sat in front of the zither and plucked the strings with both hands. The monotonous syllables gradually connected into a song. It was a very passionate song. There seemed to be a battle in front of him that ended with blood and bones. There was an indescribable deathly stillness around her. It was as if she had also died in that battle. What song is this? Shi Shang's hand paused, and the song disappeared. She turned around to look at Chen Bei, who had returned at some point, and smiled. Do you like it? Chen Bei was silent for a moment and nodded. Shi Shang moved back and gestured for him to sit in front. Chen Bei glanced at her and sat in front of her. Shi Shang hugged him from behind. I'll teach you. Chen Bei was very talented in music. Shi Shang taught him once, and he almost remembered everything. However, he couldn't play the same feeling as Shi Shang. Some songs could only be understood by people who had experienced it personally. You played well. Chen Bei praised Shi Shang, which was rare. Shi Shang hugged him and rested his chin on his shoulder. Hearing this, he chuckled. I only know this one song. She might really be born with no talent in art. Other than deliberately spending a long time to learn things that were useful to save her life, she could speak about everything else in theory, but in reality, she didn't know anything. Chen Bei did not look back. He plucked the strings again. It was a very gentle tune, like the slight ripples on the surface of a lake in spring. Before it could cause any waves, it returned to calmness. Shi Shang listened quietly and changed into a comfortable position to lean against him. If you want to take back Shu Kingdom, I can send troops to help you. Zhang. The sound of the zither suddenly changed pitch and continued to be sharp. Shi Shang was shocked and quickly removed his hand from the strings. In the end, he dug his ears. My ears are almost deaf because of you. Chen Bei calmly moved his hand back and continued to play at the place where it was broken. The gentle tune sounded again. His voice came through the music. What happens to Shu Kingdom has nothing to do with me. Then why do you want to kill me? Shi Shang was puzzled. Chen Bei was silent. He did not say a word until the song ended. He struggled out of Shi Shang's arms and carried the zither to the inner room. Shi Shang. What cat cake? Don't think that just because I dote on you, you dare to be rude to I. Well, he really dared. Chen Bei did not come out during dinner time. Shi Shang went to knock on the door without complaint. Tomorrow, he would tear down this door. It was one person's bedroom. Why did he install a small door? It was a hindrance. I'm not hungry. You can eat. A faint voice came from the room. Shi Shang continued to knock. The person inside was in a stalemate with her for a while. In the end, he could not stand her and came out. He glanced at Shi Shang and walked out silently. Bang! Chen Bei paused and looked back at the place where the sound came from. The corner of his mouth could not help but twitch. Shi Shang calmly withdrew his sword and commented, This door is too weak. Chen Bei. Would he believe that? She definitely did it on purpose. Chen Bei sullenly turned his head away. Out of sight, out of mind. Shi Shang looked at the door that had already fallen down with satisfaction. Sure enough, it was nonsense to wait until tomorrow. It was better to tear it down on the spot. The next day, Chen Bei woke up to find that all the doors in the bedroom had been torn down except for the main door. The bedroom seemed to have expanded by a third. Most importantly, there was a velvet carpet on the floor. What did she mean? Asterisk, this is a fake group. System, what's the use of a velvet carpet? And it fills the entire room. Shi Shang, lots of money. Feng Ci, she, system, she what? Shi Shang, smile, Feng Ci. Nothing. Little fairy, she can pounce on you any time, anywhere. Shi Shang, you don't want the tickets anymore? Little fairy, she can pounce on you any time, anywhere. System, you can even accept this. Chapter 1624. The next morning, Shi Shang met the leader of the so-called surprise troops. It was a man wearing a strange mask. Just as Shi Shang was crossing out 10 lines at a glance with her royal quill, he jumped in through the window. The little bird from yesterday was still perched on his shoulder. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Both sides were still talking when the bird suddenly jumped up and complained to the masked man. The man reached out to comfort the bird, and the bird's chirping finally quieted down. Shi Shang crossed out the last few memorials, threw the pen away, and looked at the masked man. Your Majesty. The masked man walked to Shi Shang and knelt down on one knee. Although he was kneeling, he was neither servile nor overbearing. He had the demeanor of a general. You are the leader of the surprise troops? Yes. The masked man did not waste any time. Shi Shang nodded and rummaged through the table. I have a mission for you. The masked man looked up. Your Majesty, didn't you call me here to ask about what happened in the past? I will decide whether to believe you after you complete the mission. Shi Shang found an envelope under the memorials. The mission is inside. Take a look. The bird flew over the masked man's shoulder and caught the envelope with its beak. Who knew that the masked man would not let go? The bird was almost knocked down by his strength. The bird was speechless. Shi Shang looked at it playfully. The bird fluttered in the air and seemed to want to pounce on him. It took a while for the bird to get the envelope from Shi Shang. The masked man did not show any emotion. He just watched the bird and Shi Shang compete. The masked man was so calm, but after opening the envelope, his mouth twitched. Your Majesty, are you kidding? She actually asked them to attack the Shu kingdom. Although the masked men were confident in their own strength, they still needed the cooperation of the other armies. If they could take down a country with just a few of them, wouldn't they have already declared themselves kings? Why would they need to do it here? I will send people to help you. The masked man immediately analyzed. Your Majesty, forgive me for being blunt, but Shu country is too far away from Fengwan. We still need to pass through Kaiyong country. If you want to test our strength, you can choose Kaiyong country, which is closer to Fengwan. Shi Shang tapped the table with his fingertips. I want the kingdom of Shu. The masked man put the letter back into the envelope. I want absolute command. If your Majesty has no problem, please prepare sufficient provisions and troops. We will meet at the city gate at noon 10 days later. The masked man cupped his hands and left through the window with the valiant bird before Shi Shang could say anything. The Shi Shang had no objection to the fact that the commander did not represent the military power. The Shi Shang ordered all the soldiers to listen to them. These people's military power had been given to them by the Shi Shang. They were not strong enough yet, so they could only listen to the Shi Shang. As for the other matters, it was handed over to Ling Yi to handle. After Shi Shang received a round of angry scolding from the old royalist officials, he unexpectedly received a report from a palace maid that His Highness was outside the palace. Chen Bei, who had never stepped out of the palace since the wedding, actually took the initiative to look for her. There was something going on. No, there was something going on. Let him in. Chen Bei was wearing the phoenix robe that represented His Highness. He was escorted into the magnificent palace by a group of people. The original phoenix robe was somewhat feminine. Not only were the sleeves wide, but there was also a long section at the back. If one only looked at the back, one would not be able to tell that the robe belonged to a man. As Shi Shang did not want Chen Bei to be dressed too feminine, the phoenix robe had been changed. Because of this, she was scolded by the royalists for several days. They were so angry that they had to change the robe. You may leave. Shi Sheng waved them away. Soon, only the two of them were left in the imperial study. Chen Bei carried the heavy robe up the stairs and stood a meter away from Shi Sheng. He looked straight at her. You want to attack the kingdom of Shu? Yes. Why? Shi Sheng blinked and waved him over. Come over and I will tell you. Chen Bei hesitated for a moment, then went up the stairs and stood beside her. However, Shi Sheng pulled him to sit down. Chen Bei was shocked and wanted to get up, but Shi Sheng held his waist tightly. This is the dragon chair. That is also a chair. Isn't it for people to sit on? Chen Bei. He suddenly understood why he heard people say that she was being scolded by the ministers every day. Chen Bei watched as she casually crossed out the memorials. Others had written so many things, but she did not even look at them. She just crossed them out. He really did not know how she dealt with political affairs. Shi Sheng could not be bothered to read these long speeches. When it came to the morning court, she would cross out all the memorials that were handed to her. Sometimes, she would even be too lazy to cross them and return them as they were. Now that the ministers had figured out this pattern, there were not many memorials that were handed to her. It could be seen from the fact that the table in front of Shi Sheng was not very messy. Why attack the kingdom of Shu? Chen Bei's gaze swept across the memorials. Some talked about national affairs, the people's livelihood, and some talked about the minister's family matters. I didn't give you a betrothal gift when we got married. Now, I'll give you the kingdom of Shu as a betrothal gift. Shi Sheng threw away the pen, closed the memorials, and threw them aside. He leaned against Chen Bei's neck and rubbed against it. Chen Bei frowned. I don't want the kingdom of Shu. Shi Sheng began to touch him dishonestly. He bit his earlobe and whispered, Then what do you want? I'll give you whatever you want. The scorching heat beside his ear made Chen Bei turn his head away unnaturally. However, his gaze swept to a certain spot on the table. His gaze paused slightly, and his body leaned back slightly. He leaned against the back of the chair, allowing Shi Sheng to lie on top of him. You can really give me anything. When have I ever lied to you? Shi Sheng kissed his lips and said in amusement. Chen Bei pointed. I want that. Shi Sheng looked in the direction of the thing he was pointing at, then looked back at him strangely. What do you want that thing for? Can it be eaten? Are you going to give it to me or not? Shi Sheng got down from his body and carried the box containing the imperial jade seal over. He placed it beside him. Here. This thing was dead heavy and ugly. What was so good about it? Ever since King Yu returned, she had not moved. Even the imperial edict conferring him was casually written without a seal. It had been placed here all this time, and it was almost covered in dust. The imperial jade seal, Big Brother. This was the imperial jade seal. Do you think it's a broken stone? To Shi Sheng, this was just a broken stone. It was not even as useful as a sword. Iron sword. I don't know if I should be proud or proud at this moment. Chen Bei glanced at Shi Sheng, who looked at him with a doting expression. He calmed his heart, opened the box outside, and reached out to take out the imperial jade seal. Shi Sheng looked at him and said, It's true. Don't worry. Are you really going to give it to me? Chen Bei asked worriedly. This was not an ordinary item. Sometimes, the imperial jade seal was even more important than a crown prince. In history, there were examples of people ascending the throne by obtaining the imperial jade seal. Shi Sheng's face was full of indifference. If you like it, then take it and play with it. I'll make a bunch for you next time. Chen Bei. Chapter 1625. Your Majesty, it's not good. Ling Yi shouted as she came in from outside the hall. Why are you making a fuss? Ling Yi gasped for breath and said with an ashen face, The imperial concubine is unconscious. The imperial physician said that his life is in danger. Shi Sheng stood up abruptly, causing the things around her to fall to the ground. Chen Bei took the imperial seal and returned to the palace. How long had it been? It had only been 4 hours. How could he be unconscious? Shi Shang suppressed the coldness in her heart and went to the palace with a cold face. Several imperial physicians had already arrived and were lining up to treat Chen Bei. The imperial concubine was raised in the palace by Her Majesty. His food and clothing were the best. It could be seen how much Her Majesty doted on him. If they dared to be slow and something happened to him, their heads would not be enough to chop off. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Shi Shang walked in, and the palace maids who were serving him all knelt on the ground and trembled. They lowered their heads to reduce their presence. The imperial physicians surrounded Chen Bei and were all at their wits' end. When they heard the commotion behind them, they all retreated to the side and knelt down to salute. Shi Shang walked past them and approached the person on the bed. His eyes were tightly shut, as if he was asleep. If it weren't for the few green lines running down his neck and face, one wouldn't be able to tell there was anything wrong with him. Shi Shang sat down and held Chen Bei's wrist. She asked in a faint voice, "What's going on?" Several imperial physicians looked at each other for a moment. One of them stood up trembling. "Your Majesty, the imperial concubine seems to be poisoned. But we have never seen this symptom before. His vitality is weakening. If this continues, he will soon." The imperial physicians did not dare to say the following words for fear of provoking their empress. Why is he poisoned? The people in the palace were all on the same side. Everything had been tested several times. How could he be poisoned? I don't know. The imperial physicians lowered their heads again. They had even guessed that he was poisoned. They had never seen or heard of such a thing. Shi Shang narrowed her eyes. If there was no problem with the food and other things in the palace, then there was only the imperial seal. Shi Shang scanned her surroundings but didn't see the jade seal. Where did he hide it? Find the imperial jade seal for me, Shi Shang ordered coldly. What? Wasn't the imperial jade seal in the imperial study? Moreover, why was he looking for the imperial jade seal at this time? Would finding the imperial jade seal save the royal concubine? She's in this room. Find her for me. Shi Shang raised his voice and ordered. The others were shocked. They suppressed the strange feeling in their hearts and quickly searched the room. Shi Shang sat silently beside Chen Bei. His gaze fell on the empty space. His expression was so cold that it was frightening. It was as if she was sitting at the peak of a mountain, and her entire body was emitting a terrifying and oppressive aura. It was as if she only needed to raise her eyebrows and raise her hand to annihilate all living beings in the world. There was no compassion or sympathy, only boundless hellfire and darkness. That terrifying pressure made everyone not dare to get too close. Even being 3 meters away from her felt like torture. Found it. An imperial physician ran over with a box containing the imperial jade seal. Found it, Your Majesty has found it. Shi Shang took the imperial jade seal and opened the box. The imperial jade seal had not changed at all. It was still the same as before. Check if there's anything on it. Shi Shang handed the imperial jade seal to a few imperial physicians. The imperial physician wanted to catch it with his bare hands, but Shi Shang avoided him. It might be poisonous. The imperial physician's heart suddenly jumped in fright. Why was there poison on the imperial jade seal? Who dared to poison the imperial jade seal? If the imperial jade seal was poisonous and the imperial jade seal was found here, then the Phoenix Lord... Heavens, when the imperial physician thought of this possibility, his entire person became unwell. The hand that was holding the imperial jade seal did not move for a long time. An imperial physician beside him was afraid that Shi Shang would flip out, so he took the box along with him and placed it on the table beside him to check with the other imperial physicians. The imperial jade seal was something that could not be seen normally, but now it was right in front of them. However, this group of people could not get excited at all. There might be poison on it. After the imperial physicians checked for a while, an imperial physician stood up and reported, Your Majesty, there is a layer of attachment to the imperial jade seal. This subject's knowledge is shallow, so I can't tell what it is. Is King Yu dead? Shi Shang asked Ling Yi, who was at the side. Your Majesty, not yet. Ling Yi was also shocked. Back then, only King Yu had touched the Imperial Jade Seal. If the Imperial Jade Seal was really poisonous, then it must have been King Yu. No wonder she returned the Imperial Jade Seal so easily. Fortunately, His Majesty had never used the Imperial Jade Seal. King Yu was dragged in front of Shi Sheng. Her face was filthy and she was in a sorry state. She no longer looked like the high-spirited King Yu from before. King Yu's gaze swept across the room. When he saw the Imperial Jade Seal placed on the table by the Imperial physicians, he immediately knew what had happened. Her gaze fell on the person on the bed. It was actually not her who had been poisoned. Shi Shang placed Chen Bei's hand back under the blanket and stood up to look down at the miserable King Yu. King Yu's eyes were filled with madness as he smiled silently. In the end, she was still one step ahead of him. However, before King Yu could negotiate with Shi Shang, he heard her say indifferently, "Bring me the rope." The Imperial Guards came in with the rope. Shi Shang personally threw the rope onto the beam above his head. "Hang her up for me." Ling Yi swallowed his saliva. "Your Majesty, where are you hanging?" Right now, His Majesty looked calm and peaceful, but she felt that this was even more terrifying than when she was smiling normally. "Neck. Xianying, you dare!" King Yu roared in a hoarse voice. "Don't you care about that Feng Jun of yours? If you dare to treat me like this, then just watch him die." "What do I not dare to do? Hang it up." The Imperial Guards immediately tied the rope and dragged the struggling King Yu onto the rope. There was a stool underneath, and King Yu was barely able to stand firm. But she needed to tiptoe, so her current posture was very comical. Shi Shang looked up at King Yu. "Where is the antidote?" "I don't know." King Yu gritted his teeth. Shi Shang kicked the stool without saying a word, and the stool fell to the ground with a clang. There was no place to step on, so King Yu's neck was immediately tightened by the rope. His feet were constantly kicking in the air, and his hands were tightly grabbing onto the rope. He opened his mouth, but was unable to make a sound. The Imperial physicians at the side hugged each other and trembled. If this method was used on them, it would be terrifying just thinking about it. "If you want to tell me where the antidote is, just blink twice. If you don't want to tell me, then just die." King Yu blinked his eyes with all his might. Shi Shang pinched his wrist and ordered his men to put King Yu down. Cough, cough, cough. After being put down, King Yu was like a fish that was about to die of thirst, desperately breathing in fresh air. The feeling of suffocation was too unbearable, and she never wanted to feel it again in her life. "Speak." The voice that came from above caused the anger in King Yu's heart to ignite. It burned fiercely, wishing that it could burn the person she hated to ashes. "Looks like you want to experience it again." The Imperial Guard stepped forward and grabbed King Yu, sending her to the rope above. "I'll say it, I'll say it." Chapter 16:26. King Yu was once again free, but the hatred in his heart could not be suppressed. Xianyang. What right did she have? She was clearly trash who didn't know anything. What right did she have to sit in this position? She should be the Empress of Phoenix Luan, an existence revered by tens of thousands of people. King Yu raised her head, her sinister hatred twisting her face, making it extremely ugly. A strange smile appeared on her face as she said word by word, "There is no antidote." Since he didn't let her die, it was also a good deal to let her beloved die. Ha 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 ha. King Yu became more and more deranged. "There is no antidote, no antidote. Xianyang, you can only watch him die. He will die bit by bit, as if someone is strangling his neck, tightening it bit by bit until he is completely dead." Shi Shang remained unmoved as he leaned over and stared into King Yu's eyes. King Yu was so mad that he wanted to bite Shi Shang. "Tell me, who poisoned me and where is the antidote?" Shi Shang's voice seemed to carry a hint of bewitchment. The originally crazy King Yu's scarlet eyes suddenly became sluggish. She struggled a little, but in the end, she still became sluggish. King Yu's voice also became flat. "I don't know. Every time we meet, he covers his face. I don't know him." He said that there is no antidote. Shi Sheng frowned. There really was no antidote. Kill her. Your Majesty, I haven't asked for the antidote yet. Ling Yi was puzzled. If he killed him just like that, who would he ask? Where is the antidote? She's useless. Shi Sheng said indifferently. King, you only wanted to kill her so that he could ascend the throne, but the goal of the person behind her was not that simple. Shi Sheng thought for a moment, then leaned over and asked, what price do you have to pay for him helping you? King Yu, Imperial Jade Seal. Ling Yi was horrified. He actually wanted the Imperial Jade Seal. Was King Yu stupid? If someone else obtained the Imperial Jade Seal, wouldn't that mean that they had an advantage? Even if King Yu really succeeded, the other party could still use the Imperial Jade Seal to create more waves. At that time, Feng Wan would be in a state of chaos, and it would be hard to say who would take the throne. Shi Sheng's gaze fell on the Imperial Jade Seal. What was so good about that thing? Bring the Imperial Jade Seal and follow me to the city tower. Shi Sheng paused for a moment. Kill her for me. The group of people headed towards the city gate tower in a grandiose manner. Who would have thought that the city gate tower would be filled with people everywhere? It had long been completely surrounded. Today was the 10th day of the agreement with the masked man. The commoners were all watching the troops outside the city. The Imperial Guards led the way in front. When the commoners saw the bright yellow carriage, they guessed that it might be someone from the Imperial family who came to send them off. But now, the Imperial family seemed to only have Her Majesty the Empress. Her Majesty the Empress was inside? There were many layers of heavy gauze, and it was impossible to see the person inside clearly. Even if the commoners stretched their necks, they couldn't see anything. It was only when the carriage stopped below the city gate tower that the person inside alighted. She was wearing a bright yellow dragon robe. Who else could it be other than Her Majesty the Empress? Long live the Emperor! Long live the Emperor! A deafening sound resounded throughout the city. The soldiers outside all heard this. They looked at the city gate tower with slight excitement. Had the Emperor come to send them off? Soon, they saw a bright yellow figure appear on top of the city gate tower, but she was still carrying someone in her arms. She bent down to settle the person down, then stood up and looked down. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Your Majesty! The soldiers outside all shouted in unison. Their aura was shocking and inspiring. The masked man rode on a horse, and a snow-white bird circled above his head. Behind him, there were many other masked men. Every one of them was wearing black armor, and their horses were all black. They lined up neatly at the front, and their aura was several levels higher than the troops behind them. This was the elite troop of the Phoenix Luan Imperial family. Shi Sheng raised his hand and signaled for them to be quiet. The voices below instantly disappeared. Shi Sheng stepped on the stairs at the side and stood at the top. I'll wait for your triumphant return. The soldiers below immediately raised their arms and shouted, Triumphant return! Triumphant return! Triumphant return! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! A series of voices rang out, joining together into one. The masked man raised his head and glanced at Shi Sheng. He pulled on the reins and urged the horse to gallop out of the way. The black troops followed closely behind, and from afar, they looked like a sharp sword. The troops gradually left. Shi Sheng jumped down from the top and asked people to hang the Imperial Jade Seal on the city wall. She fiddled with it for a while, and then asked people to hang a banner. There were a few unrecognizable words written on it. The Imperial Guards and the group of Imperial doctors studied it for a long time, but they still couldn't understand what was written. Her Majesty's scribbling was really amazing. Looking at the Imperial Jade Seal hanging on the city wall, everyone felt stifled. This was the Imperial Jade Seal. Why are you hanging it here like a pendant? Are you auctioning it? Your Majesty, what should we do now? Ling Yi deployed the Imperial Guards and asked Shi Sheng. The Imperial Jade Seal was already hung on the city wall. What Her Majesty wanted to do was self-evident. She wanted to openly lure out the person who wanted the Imperial Jade Seal. Let's wait. Now, There was no other way but to wait. She didn't even know who wanted the Imperial Jade Seal. You guys, pay attention to his condition at all times. Yes, yes, yes. The Imperial doctors trembled and nodded. They all stood beside Chen Bei and stared at him like he was a treasure. They didn't even dare to blink, for fear that if they blinked, there would be a problem. In a tea house not far from the city tower, two people were standing with their hands behind their backs. One of the men was wearing a bamboo hat to cover his face. The other man was obviously a subordinate, and he was full of respect for the man in the bamboo hat. Flutter, coo, coo, coo. The pigeon landed on the windowsill and called out to the two people. The subordinate caught the pigeon and took down the thing tied to its feet. Master, the Imperial Jade Seal is indeed on the city tower. The subordinate respectfully reported to the man in the bamboo hat. The man in the bamboo hat looked in the direction of the city tower. The huge banner was fluttering in the wind. What's written on the banner? The subordinate carefully looked at the news that just came. Master, it says, I can't understand it. The man in the bamboo hat. The words on the banner were too messy, and they were blown around by the wind. It would be strange if he could understand it. The man in the bamboo hat approached the city wall and could barely make out a few words. He had to guess and guess to complete the words. The antidote in exchange for the Imperial Jade Seal. The man in the bamboo hat stood in the crowd of onlookers and did not appear for the time being. These people did not know what their Majesty was doing up there and were discussing it in full swing. He had arranged for people in the palace to know that her lord consort had been poisoned. He had not come to find her, but she had actually taken out the Imperial Jade Seal and hung it on the city wall in such a high-profile manner. This way of opening it was different from what the man in the bamboo hat had imagined. Naturally, he did not dare to act rashly. At this moment, the ministers who had received the news rushed over one after another. One by one, they rushed up the city wall in a hurry. With the royalists leading the charge, they jumped and cursed at the Shisheng. The general content was, you actually hung such an important thing like the Imperial Jade Seal on the city wall. Are you worthy of your ancestors, worthy of the country, worthy of the people below? Doesn't your conscience hurt? #today, I'm begging for poppy flower votes #monthly votes. Vote, 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 vote. Chapter 16:27. As more and more officials gathered, the Shisheng grew irritated and ordered the imperial guards to chase all of them away. The royalists who were scolding the emperor from the top of the city walls ran down to the bottom of the city walls to scold him. Perhaps the Shisheng did not care much about their scolding, but these officials were getting bolder and bolder by the day. Of course, these officials couldn't be blamed entirely. The main problem was that Shisheng's actions were completely against the rules of etiquette and common sense. It was already good enough that she was only scolded and not deposed from the position of the empress. The Shisheng stood on the city walls and looked at the crowd below. The man in the bamboo hat was very conspicuous. The Shisheng saw him at first glance and sized him up. Based on the norm, someone who was afraid that others would see his face was obviously up to something. Sometimes, he could casually change his clothes, put on makeup, or change his hairstyle and throw himself into the crowd. Only true fans would be able to recognize him. She did not understand why he had to wear a bamboo hat. He was obviously more conspicuous in a crowd of ordinary people. The man in the bamboo hat probably sensed the Shisheng's gaze and looked over. At that moment, their eyes seemed to meet in the air and sparks flew. The corners of the Shisheng's mouth curved slightly. He suddenly raised his hand and waved. Catch the man in the bamboo hat. The imperial guards below immediately looked in the direction the Shisheng was pointing and surrounded the man in the bamboo hat. Before the imperial guards could get close, the man in the bamboo hat flew up and landed on the city walls easily. The imperial guards on the city walls were shocked and immediately surrounded the man in the bamboo hat. The man in the bamboo hat did not care about the imperial guards at all. His gaze fell on the Shisheng through the black veil. I heard that the Empress of Fenghuan only knows how to eat, drink, and play. She is addicted to beauty. Now it seems that it is just a rumor. The Shang waved his hand and dismissed the Imperial Guards. How is it a rumor? I am going to use the Imperial Jade Seal to exchange for the safety of the Empress. You are still addicted to beauty. He was addicted to his wife's beauty. The man in the bamboo hat looked at Chen Bei, who was surrounded by people in the distance. Is that the seventh prince of the Shu kingdom? The antidote, the Imperial Jade Seal. Shang ignored the man in the bamboo hat and stretched out his hand. Do you want to trade? The bamboo hat man narrowed his eyes and a trace of doubt flashed through his eyes. Her Majesty the Empress is giving me the Imperial Jade Seal just like that? Just for a man? There are so many men in the world. If he dies, you can have more. Shang said impatiently, Why do you talk so much nonsense? Are you going to trade or not? Just say it. What's the use of blindly blabbering so much, young man? Can't we be more straightforward? The man in the bamboo hat. This Empress was a little different from what he had imagined. If he couldn't play this trick, then should he switch or not? The man in bamboo hat glanced at Shang. There was a 50% chance that he was lying, however. The Imperial Jade Seal was an opportunity. Your Majesty, please tell me how you want to make the exchange. How can I be sure that you will let me leave safely after the exchange? There were so many Imperial Guards in the open, but he didn't know if there were more in the dark. Io, didn't you say you could fly just now? I didn't set up an inescapable net. Why don't you fly? Shang said sarcastically. The man in the bamboo hat. Why did he suddenly want to strangle her to death? It seems that your Majesty's sincerity in exchanging the antidote ends here, the man in the bamboo hat said. I wonder if your Majesty's royal concubine can survive until nightfall. Are you threatening me? How bold of you! How dare you threaten I? Where's I's sword? The man in the bamboo hat stood there calmly and didn't reply, but his meaning was obvious. I am threatening you, and you have no choice but to be threatened by me. Shang glanced at Chen Bei and raised his eyebrows. Then how do I know that the antidote you are giving me is real? Your Majesty the Empress is sincere, so I will naturally give you the real antidote. My goal is only the Imperial Jade Seal. It seems that the Imperial Jade Seal is a treasure. What's inside? Shang glanced at the Imperial Jade Seal. The Imperial Jade Seal of the Fenghuan Kingdom had existed for a long time. No one could tell which dynasty the Imperial Jade Seal came from and which emperor it was. The man in the bamboo hat obviously didn't want Shang to know what the Imperial Jade Seal was for. Your Majesty the Empress, I can still return the Imperial Jade Seal to you after you use it. You won't lose anything. Shang's eyes flickered. That meant he wanted the complete Imperial Jade Seal. Shang suddenly took a step back and reached out to pull the Imperial Jade Seal off. He held the Imperial Jade Seal by the silk belt and stretched out of the city wall. Throw the antidote over. I will throw the Imperial Jade Seal down. If you catch it, it will be yours. The man in the bamboo hat was probably afraid that Shang would throw the Imperial Jade Seal down, so he was a little nervous. However, he didn't want Shang to see through him, so he only took a step forward and quickly retracted his steps. Your Majesty the Empress. 3. Shang loosened his grip and the silk belt slid down. The man in the bamboo hat probably didn't expect Shang to be so decisive. He didn't seem to care that he couldn't get the antidote at all. 1. Shang suddenly loosened his grip and the Imperial Jade Seal fell from the city wall. The man in the bamboo hat was shocked. Where is the second? Did you eat the second? The Imperial Guards had unknowingly set up their crossbows and aimed at him the moment Shang finished speaking. If they tried to stop him, he definitely wouldn't be able to catch the Imperial Jade Seal. Therefore, the man in the bamboo hat decisively took out the antidote and threw it to Shang. At the same time, he also rushed out. This series of actions didn't take much time, but when he rushed out, the Imperial Jade Seal had already fallen halfway to the city wall. Just as he was about to grab the Imperial Jade Seal, a few people suddenly rushed out from the bottom of the city wall and flew up to snatch the Imperial Jade Seal. Sher Shang propped himself up and looked down. The man in the bamboo hat was already fighting with the people who suddenly rushed out. Those people were obviously in the same group. The Imperial Jade Seal was being passed around by them, and the man in the bamboo hat was so angry that he started killing. Your Majesty, they look a bit like people from the kingdom of Shu. Ling Yi was also lying on the city wall with Sher Shang. If they want the Imperial Jade Seal so much, then let them all have a share. Sher Shang laughed sinisterly. A light flashed from his palm, and the Imperial Jade Seal that was originally in his hand suddenly flew up into the sky. The people below all looked at this scene in a daze and even forgot to fight. After the Imperial Jade Seal flew up, a simple array appeared below it. Light emitted from the array and enveloped the Imperial Jade Seal as it spun at high speed. In the eyes of the crowd, it was a spinning ball of light. It looked very strange in the air. Sher Shang turned and walked towards Chen Bei. He was so calm that the shocked imperial physicians checked whether there was any problem with the antidote. The imperial physicians couldn't concentrate, and it took a while for them to confirm that there was no problem. Of course, they could only guarantee that there was no problem with the antidote itself. Whether it could cure the poison or not, they didn't know. They couldn't bear this responsibility. Sher Shang expressionlessly fed the antidote to Chen Bei, causing the imperial physicians to tremble in fear. He fed it just like that. What if it wasn't the antidote? What if it worsened the poison in the royal concubine's body? Your Majesty, why are you so impulsive? Before the imperial physicians could roar, they heard a moderate explosion outside the city wall. Everyone looked up at the same time and saw a firework explode in the sky. Like fireflies, the light scattered all over the sky. It was very beautiful. Everyone looked at it with a dumbfounded expression and couldn't recover for a long time. The Imperial Jade Seal exploded. Chapter 1628. Compared to the imperial family on the city wall, the two groups of people fighting for the Jade Seal below were much more dumbfounded. The light emitted from the Jade Seal's explosion proved that it was a real Jade Seal and not a high-quality imitation. The Jade Seal exploded. The Jade Seal exploded. Their heartbeats seemed to have stopped, and only the words that kept flooding their minds were left. Catch them. The people on the city wall came back to their senses first and pointed at the people below and shouted. The Imperial Guards had been waiting to shoot. When the voice came out, the arrows shot towards the people below like shooting stars. Both sides did not care about the Jade Seal's explosion and quickly rushed to the two sides of the city wall. Since the Jade Seal had exploded, there was no point in staying. Kill the person who exploded the Jade Seal? There were so many Imperial Guards on the city wall. How could they beat them with so few people? Even if they could beat them, what was the use of killing her? The most useful thing was that the Jade Seal was gone. Their escape route had been planned long ago, but they did not expect that their escape route had been blocked by the Imperial Guards. Fortunately, we found two routes just now. Go that way. Someone in the team pointed in another direction. When doing this kind of thing, of course, they had to think about the long term. If they were caught, how could they escape? However, reality hit them hard in the face. Looking at the Imperial Guards standing in the distance, they froze in place. Dead or alive? The Imperial Guard at the front raised his sword and ordered. There was a lot of fighting below the city wall. Sher Shang half hugged Chen Bei and waited for the medicine to take effect. The dusk on the horizon was approaching. The fighting had already subsided, but Chen Bei did not react at all. Your Majesty. Sher Shang looked up indifferently. The sunset on the horizon was reflected in her eyes, as enchanting as blood. Ling Yi swallowed his saliva and reported in fear, "There are no survivors." The man in the bamboo hat ran away. Sher Shang didn't say a word as she tilted her head to look at the horizon. The sunset was gradually covered by the clouds. The light in her eyes dimmed bit by bit, sinking into a deathly still darkness. A suffocating gloom rose from the depths of her eyes. The imperial doctors on the city wall did not dare to breathe. They even had to be careful when swallowing their saliva, for fear of startling their empress and taking out her anger on them. The night wind blew gently. Shi Shang wrapped Chen Bei in a cloak, moved his stiff limbs, and carried him down the city wall. Seeing Shi Shang come down, the ministers at the foot of the city wall wanted to scold her for the imperial jade seal, but seeing her like this, they all felt as if someone was strangling their throats and couldn't open their mouths. Under the night sky, the woman's entire body seemed to be shrouded in an even thicker layer of darkness. She gave off a sinister and evil aura. Anyone who got close to her could feel the cold air around her. The ministers watched as she got into the car and headed towards the palace under the escort of the imperial guards. What's going on? His Highness wouldn't. What happened up there just now? The officials grabbed the imperial physician whose limbs were weak. Why did the imperial jade seal explode? What happened to His Highness? His Majesty didn't look too good. They were terrified. The imperial physicians were held back by a group of ministers and felt helpless. Let go of me first. I can't even breathe. Let go of me. The imperial physician was finally able to catch his breath. Under the questioning of the ministers, he had no choice but to recount what had happened on the city wall. It's like this. Then is His Highness? Don't talk nonsense. His Highness is still alive. The imperial physician reprimanded, but in the next moment he shook his head. But he might not live past tonight. If the antidote was useless, His Highness would definitely not live past tonight. But even after taking the antidote for such a long time, His Highness did not react. It could be seen that there was an 80% chance that the antidote was useless. If His Highness died, what would His Majesty do? The imperial physicians didn't dare to imagine how favored this lord of the royal family was. Others might not know, but they, the imperial physicians, knew best. If the lord of the royal family had a small illness, they would be anxiously called out to all of them. If they couldn't say something, no one was allowed to leave. Let's go to the palace. No one knew who suggested it, but the ministers rushed to the palace in a hurry. The carriage stopped outside the bedchamber. Shi Shang carried Chen Bei out of the carriage and walked inside with a gloomy expression. The people in the bedchamber were so frightened that their expressions changed. Ling Yi told them to go down, but she only followed them to the outside of the room and did not dare to go in. If the antidote was useless, then His Highness. It was better to leave this time to His Majesty and His Highness. Shi Shang gently placed Chen Bei on the bed. Chen Bei's eyes were still tightly closed, and the blue lines on his face had already faded. However, he did not wake up, and his vital signs were getting weaker and weaker. Shi Shang reached out to touch his face, and his fingertips rubbed against the side of his face. Shi Shang's gaze was a little blank, and no one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, Shi Shang leaned over and planted a kiss on Chen Bei's forehead. Just as she was about to get up, the eyelashes that were pressed against her cheeks suddenly trembled. The heartbeat and pulse, which were so light that they were almost inaudible, became stronger. Before Chen Bei opened his eyes, he felt that he was pressed into a warm embrace, and a familiar breath assaulted his face. "Your Majesty," Chen Bei spoke with difficulty. "Are you going to suffocate me to death?" The blocked air slowly seeped in through the gap. Chen Bei took a deep breath, and his heartbeat gradually returned to normal. "Your Majesty, can you let go of me now?" Chen Bei tried to push the person who was holding him. "Let me hug you for a while." Chen Bei's heart suddenly palpitated, as if something had suddenly pierced his heart. His heartbeat, which had just calmed down, began to beat wildly again. He reached out and hugged Shi Shang, and even patted her back a few times. Was she afraid? Chen Bei admitted that it was the first time he had seen her like this. He could not refuse, and he could not help but feel sorry for her. "Can I kiss you?" Shi Shang began to ask for a yard after taking an inch. Chen Bei did not know where the guilt came from, but he inexplicably agreed. When he felt her warmth, Chen Bei finally woke up from his daze. However, since it had already come to this point, it would seem a little unreasonable for him to refuse now, so he simply took the initiative to respond to her. After the kiss ended, Shi Shang returned to normal, as if the person who had made him feel a little helpless just now was not her. How could this person change his expression so quickly? Your Majesty, can you get up now? Chen Bei was uncomfortable from being pressed down, and he looked at Shi Shang with some discomfort. Shi Shang propped himself up and sat to the side, helping him sit up. How do you feel? Chen Bei suddenly glared at Shi Shang, as if to say, how can you ask such a question? What are you thinking? I'm asking you, how do you feel? Shi Shang said unhappily. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Chen Bei's face turned red. What was he thinking just now? He must have been stunned by the kiss just now. It must be so. It was all her fault. No. Chen Bei stammered, and the tips of his ears turned red. Shi Shang's hand reached out and touched him. Chen Bei was so shocked that he shrank back. What are you doing? Just touching. Shi Shang looked innocent. You won't let me touch you? Chen Bei. If you want to touch me, just touch me. Why do you have to say it so matter-of-factly? Should I let her touch me? Perhaps it was because he had just been detoxified, but Chen Bei's mind was still a little muddled. His behavior was very uncontrollable. Not only was he shocked, but he was also very easily moved. This was the reason why Chen Bei thought he was acting abnormally. He firmly refused to admit that it was because of him. Chapter 1629. Chen Bei drank some water and the weakness in his body lessened. Why was I poisoned? Chen Bei frowned and looked at Shi Shang. He did not doubt her. If she wanted to kill him, why would she use such a troublesome method? There's poison on the Imperial Jade Seal. You were poisoned when you touched it. Imperial Jade Seal? Chen Bei was puzzled. Don't you use it every day? Why are you fine and I'm poisoned? Shi Shang's smile was a little evil. Who told you that I use the Imperial Jade Seal every day? Does your family use the Imperial Jade Seal every day? Chen Bei clearly did not know. He shook his head blankly. Shi Shang thought of the information Ling Yi gave him and regretted what he said just now. Chen Bei was the seventh son of the Emperor of Shu, but the seventh was an unknown number in Shu. Therefore, even Chen Bei's mother and him were not favored by the Emperor of Shu. It was almost equivalent to being under house arrest in the Shu Imperial Palace. Anyway, his daughter-in-law's background could only be described with one word: miserable. There was no worst, only worse. Did this guy really go on the wrong channel? The Imperial Jade Seal is only used when writing imperial edicts and when necessary. Usually, there's no need to use it. I only wrote an imperial edict to confer you a title, but I didn't stamp it at that time. The Imperial Jade Seal was not where she wrote the imperial edict. She found it troublesome, so she did not stamp it. Anyway, no one else could see the imperial edict. I already said that it's not fun, but you insisted on playing with it. You almost lost your life, didn't you? The imperial edict was not stamped? And how would he know that it was poisoned? What about the Imperial Jade Seal? I blew it up. Shi Shang said it casually, as if it was an ordinary item and not a priceless Imperial Jade Seal. Chen Bei's face turned pale. You are not lying to me? Why would I lie to you? There are so many witnesses. Why did you blow up the Imperial Jade Seal? Chen Bei's voice trembled and his eyes were filled with disbelief. That was the Imperial Jade Seal. How could it blow up? Shi Shang frowned slightly. Why, is it very important to you? This was the Imperial Jade Seal of Feng Yuan. Why were so many people fighting over it? Was it that valuable? Your Majesty has never heard of the legend of the Snow Country's treasure? A cold voice sounded from outside the window. Shi Shang's eyes suddenly flashed with a dangerous light. He quietly held Chen Bei's hand. Chen Bei struggled for a moment, but Shi Shang took the opportunity to clasp his hand between his fingers. Chen Bei could not struggle anymore. His cheeks were burning as he looked at the window. At this moment, the window was pushed open, and a petite figure jumped in from outside. Her gaze immediately fell on Shi Shang and Chen Bei's interlocked hands, and the look in her eyes clearly changed. Shi Shang almost exploded. F***K her grandpa. The female lead snuck in and she didn't even notice it. Don't tell I that the female lead's Qing Gong is so good that she can walk on water without leaving a trace. It's definitely because of the plot's help that she can quietly approach me. How infuriating. Yu Ruliu forced himself to look away. Seventh Prince, are you all right? Nothing. Chen Bei did not look at Yu Ruliu. Shi Shang leaned to the side and stood between the two of them. This female lead was obviously coveting his wife. Fortunately, his wife didn't show any abnormal behavior. Gods. Yu Ruliu's eyes widened. Wait a minute. I'm not here to cause trouble for you. I'm here to exchange the seventh prince with you. Exchange? What are you going to exchange for? My female lead is amazing. Why must you take Ai's wife away? What are your intentions? Damn it, kill her. Your antidote. Yu Ruliu suddenly became much more confident. The poison you were previously poisoned with has not been completely cured. It's only in the dormant stage now. Once the dormant stage is over, the poison will act up again. You poisoned Ai. Yu Ruliu shook his head. Your Majesty, I admit that I don't have the ability to bypass the layers of protection of the palace to poison you. Then you know about me being poisoned? And the antidote? Of course I have my sources of information. Your Majesty, how about exchanging the seventh prince for your antidote? Yu Ruliu proposed another condition. No. Shi Shang did not even frown. Nothing can compare to him. Chen Bei's heart trembled again, and his fingers unconsciously tightened around her. Nothing can compare to him. Including her own life? Including your own life? Yu Ruliu's voice overlapped with Chen Bei's thoughts. He instinctively looked at Shi Shang, as if waiting for his answer. No. Yu Ruliu seemed to be relieved. If she answered yes, she really did not know if the seventh prince would. Chen Bei lowered his eyes, and his fingers slowly loosened. His life depends on me. If I live, he lives. If I die, he dies. His arrogant and egotistical voice echoed in the main hall. For a moment, Yu Ruliu did not know how to refute. She said dryly, Do you know what poison you've been poisoned with? Shi Shang's lips curled into a faint smile. I'll know very soon. What? Before Yu Ruliu could react, she heard orderly footsteps outside the room. She looked at the window that she had just entered through and saw Imperial guards with weapons in their hands. A sharp sound pierced through the air, and arrows with cold light shot in from the window. They did not seem to be able to distinguish between friend and foe. Yu Ruliu dodged while looking at Shi Shang. When the arrows were in front of her, it was as if there was a transparent barrier that blocked them. The sharp tips of the arrows pierced through the barrier and fell to the ground softly as if they had pierced through cotton. How could it be? It was also Chen Bei's first time seeing it. He was a little surprised, but he was much better than Yu Ruliu. After all, he had been with her for a while and knew that she had many unusual tricks up her sleeve. If I kill her, will you be angry? Shi Shang lowered his head and looked at Chen Bei. Why would I be angry? Chen Bei asked quickly. Yu Ruliu was not familiar with him. He did not even remember who she was. If he had not decided to come to Fangwan and she had not suddenly appeared and insisted on taking him away, he might not even remember her name. Yu Ruliu had been entrusted by his mother, but he did not want her to do so. He had his own plans and did not want to owe her anything. The last time he had let her go, it was already because of his mother. It's good that you're not angry. Shi Shang took out his iron sword. Anyway, if you're angry, I want to kill her too. Chen Bei was speechless. So why are you asking me? The arrows turned the entire room into a hornet's nest. Yu Ruliu scurried around the room, wanting to rush out. However, the rain of arrows formed a thick protective wall and she could not rush out at all. How many arrows did these Imperial guards bring with them? Why was there no end to it? Yu Ruliu saw Shi Shang coming towards her from the corner of her eyes. She looked at the arrows falling in front of her with a strange expression. Shock could no longer be used to describe her feelings. What kind of martial arts was this? Or sorcery? What are you trying to do? Shi Shang smiled mysteriously and swung his sword towards her. The cold light fell into Yu Ruliu's eyes and expanded infinitely in her pupils. Everything in front of her seemed to be white. In the next second, it was cut into countless fragments by the arrows that shot towards her. They scattered into light spots and formed an orderly array in the room. At this moment, a strange scene occurred. The light spots actually gathered towards her and surrounded her. When she got closer, Yu Ruliu saw that the light spots were not light at all. They were broken arrowheads. Each of them seemed to be cut off on purpose and were of the same size. Swish, the iron sword swung upwards and all the arrowheads shot towards Yu Ruliu's body. Chapter 1630. Yu Ruliu was surrounded by arrows from all directions. Unless she could teleport, there was no way she could avoid so many attacks. However, reality told Shi Shang that she still managed to avoid them. There was something on her body that was suddenly activated when all the arrows were about to reach her, protecting Yu Ruliu in it. The arrows rebounded in all directions and shot out of the room. Shi Shang supported his sword with one hand and tilted his head slightly to look at Yu Ruliu. Although Yu Ruliu was not seriously injured, there were still many small wounds on her body. Blood was seeping out and staining her body. Yu Ruliu panted. While Shi Shang did not do anything, she ran toward the window again. Shi Shang did not know what he was thinking. He did not move even when Yu Ruliu reached the window. Just as Yu Ruliu opened the window, Shi Shang suddenly moved. He rushed in front of Yu Ruliu at a strange speed and slashed at her hands with his iron sword. Yu Ruliu was forced to give up on the window and retreat to the back to defend herself. "Your Majesty, why do you have to kill me?" Yu Ruliu took the time to shout. "This woman was crazy. Who allowed you to appear in front of me? It was fine if you did not appear and did not see her. But now that you appeared in front of her, wasn't that sending yourself to her doorstep? Why would she let you go? Even an idiot would know that it would be a waste to reject someone who sent themselves to their doorstep. Did she look worse than an idiot?" Yu Ruliu was so angry that she wanted to vomit blood. She wanted to kill her just because she appeared in front of her? Was she crazy? Bam! Yu Ruliu was distracted talking to Shi Shang and was kicked to the corner of the room by Shi Shang. She was about to get up when a cold weapon was pressed against her neck. She looked up and was met with a pair of evil eyes that seemed to have opened from hell. Darkness and evil energy formed a vortex that pulled her into it. No matter how hard she struggled, she could not escape from the vortex. The suffocating mud engulfed her and she felt as if her body did not belong to her at this moment. Yu Ruliu's heart was beating like thunder. She pinched her thigh to wake up from the terrifying vortex. Her back was covered in cold sweat. She was so flustered that she could not think straight. It was just a look. She felt as if she was facing an army of thousands. Was this woman really an empress and not a demon? Shi Shang lifted Yu Ruliu up and swiftly tied him up with a rope. She had a faint smile on her face, but no one could tell whether it was a smile of mockery, disdain, or joy. "Now tell me, what kind of poison did I get?" Yu Ruliu's face was stained with blood. She bit her lip and refused to speak. She had originally planned to use this information to exchange for the seventh prince. Who would have thought that this development would be completely different from what she had imagined? The main reason was that this empress was a little different from what she had imagined. Forget it if you don't want to talk about it. How about the treasures of the Snow Kingdom? Shi Shang did not care much about the antidote. Yu Ruliu glanced at Chen Bei. The entire room was in a mess. Only he was untouched. He was still the high and mighty seventh prince. The seventh prince who refused to even look at her. No matter how much she did, he wouldn't even look at her. Yu Ruliu felt bitter in his heart. How long had he known the empress? He could actually be so intimate with her. She could not accept it. She had clearly met him first and had been by his side for so many years. Why did he refuse to look at her in the end? I don't know. Yu Ruliu's voice was hoarse. Rumor has it that the people of the Snow Kingdom have the ability to prophesy. They are people who are favored by the gods, Qianbei said faintly. Euryliu looked at him abruptly. Then, she lowered her head with a bitter smile and listened to the voice on the other side. Although the Snow Kingdom is a kingdom, it doesn't have a city. It is more like a tribe. They live in a special place. Ordinary people can't find the way to the Snow Kingdom. They are kind by nature and will help people who are lost. They will also help people who have been harmed by war. There is no distinction between men and women in the Snow Kingdom. They are all beautiful. I don't know when it started, but it has become popular in various countries to be proud of the people of the Snow Kingdom. They covet the beauty and ability of the people of the Snow Kingdom. The people of the Snow Kingdom were hunted down and sold to the royal families and high-ranking officials of various countries. If the people of the Snow Kingdom had children with ordinary people, that child would also have the prophecy ability of the people of the Snow Kingdom. When there were more people who could prophesy in various countries, this ability became less precious. But at the same time, it also provoked a greater war. That war ended with an alliance to destroy all the people of the Snow Kingdom and those who had the bloodline of the Snow Kingdom. Qianbei paused and looked up at Shi Sheng. Because all the forces had people who could prophesy, the number of people who died in that war would only increase. There would not be a clear winner. So, they pushed all the blame on the people of the Snow Kingdom and their ability. The Snow Kingdom was destroyed. But before the destruction of the Snow Kingdom, there was a rumor that the people of the Snow Kingdom had an elixir of immortality. This was the legend of the treasure of the Snow Kingdom. What does this have to do with my Feng Yuan jade seal? After listening to the story, Shi Sheng did not show any surprise. He only calmly asked the most important question. This is another rumor. Qianbei gathered the quilt around his body. Rumor has it that, in the beginning, the people of the Snow Kingdom helped the people build cities. They used a piece of jade to create 5 jade seals and handed them to 5 people. Those 5 people were the first 5 emperors. The countries built by the last 5 emperors were divided, united, and divided again. Until today, there are many countries. Rumor has it that the 5 jade seals have the ability to open the path to the Snow Kingdom. So, after the destruction of the Snow Kingdom, people have been searching for them. Unfortunately, some of the jade seals disappeared with history. Some were passed down, such as His Majesty's. Now that the jade seals are gone, no one can open the path to the Snow Kingdom. Shi Sheng spread his hands. What treasure of the Snow Kingdom? It was all rumor. There was an 80% chance that it was not there. Even if there was a 20% chance that it was there, it was definitely prepared for the protagonist. You, a group of cannon fodder, want it? Go back and reincarnate before coming back. Qianbei's face turned ugly for a moment. Do you know how important the jade seals are to the 7th prince? Euryliu suddenly opened his mouth with a questioning and angry tone. Shi Sheng raised his eyebrows in surprise. He is from the Snow Kingdom? Euryliu. Qianbei shook his head. I am not, but someone is. Oh, someone who took over your Shu Kingdom. Shi Sheng understood. Ling Yi said that those people were looking for something. It must be the jade seals. TSK. This hidden dungeon was so big. Flip's table. Open your grandpa's dungeon. She just wanted to quietly show off some PDA. Why did they open a dungeon for her? Who was the planner? There was no drumstick. So angry that she could not control herself. Euryliu seemed to be a little afraid of those people. When he spoke, he was a little cautious. They controlled all the royal family and ministers of the Shu Kingdom. Then, they threatened them with their relatives and asked them to go to various countries to find the jade seals. The fact that Feng Yuan has the jade seals is public knowledge. Because you are the empress, so the 7th prince was chosen to borrow your birthday to give it to you to take the opportunity to get the jade seals. Chapter 1631. Euryliu thought that Shi Sheng would be enraged when he heard this, but he didn't. He didn't even frown. She didn't care why the seventh prince was trying to get close to her. Sher Shang dragged the iron sword around the room. The iron sword made an ear-piercing sound as it was dragged across the floor. The light flickered as he walked, and the entire room seemed to have quietened down. At this moment, the arrows that had stopped earlier started shooting again. Yu Ruliu heard the thumping sounds behind her and was glad that she was tied up. Otherwise, she would have been shot into a hornet's nest. Yu Ruliu shouted at Sher Shang, "Your Majesty, can't you ask them to stop? Can I still run?" Even if there were many arrows, this was not the right way to use them. Sher Shang looked at her in confusion. "I didn't give the order. Why are you yelling at me?" This Bao Bao is also very confused right now. Were the people outside trying to rebel? Damn it, where's my sword? If you didn't give the order, why would they? Yu Ruliu's voice stopped abruptly. There was a trace of fear in her eyes. "Yes, they're here." "Who's here?" "The people of Snow Country." Yu Ruliu said, "They're here." Sher Shang couldn't understand. Aren't the people of Snow Country all dead? Why are they still here? How could they be dead? Yu Ruliu sounded anxious. Back then, the people of Snow Country gave birth to many people. Someone must have escaped. You can't even silence them properly. Serves you right for not being an overlord. Sher Shang looked disgusted. Yu Ruliu was speechless. Is this the time to talk about this? You don't know how powerful the people of Snow Country are. Not only do they have the ability to predict the future, but they also have the ability to control people as their puppets. The people of Snow Country are here for revenge. Yu Ruliu spoke quickly. Your Majesty, is there a need to tie me up at this time? Sher Shang nodded seriously. Yes, there is a need. Yu Ruliu was speechless. Did she say all that for nothing? Did she only hear the last sentence? Sher Shang calmly walked back to Chen Bei from the rain of arrows. Can you stand up? Chen Bei nodded. He lifted the quilt and got out of bed. Sher Shang squatted down to help him put on his shoes. Yu Ruliu was shocked again. She was the empress. Yet she was squatting on the ground to help a man put on his shoes. If it was any other country, it wouldn't be hard to understand. However, this was Feng Wan, a country where women were respected. It had always been men who bent their knees and arched their backs. When had a woman ever done that? However, Chen Bei did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. After putting on his shoes, Sher Shang put on his coat for him and then held his hand as he got up. Chen Bei's body was still a little weak. When he got up, his vision turned black and he felt dizzy. His body was weak and he could not stand steadily. His entire center of gravity leaned on Sher Shang. Sher Shang supported him and waited patiently for him to recover before leading him out of the room. To be honest, anyone would find it strange to see such a scene as if they were taking a stroll in the back garden during a rain of arrows. Hey! Yu Ruliu saw that the two of them were about to leave the room and quickly shouted, "Let go of me first." However, Sher Shang did not even turn his head. He opened the door of the room that had been shot into a hornet's nest, stepped out of the room, and disappeared from Yu Ruliu's sight. Yu Ruliu gritted her teeth. Not only did she steal her seventh prince, she even tied her up here. How could this woman be so hateful? Outside the room, the Imperial Guards still surrounded the room. The only difference was that there were a few men in black standing in front of the Imperial Guards. As soon as Sher Shang went out, one of the men waved his hand and the Imperial Guards suddenly stopped shooting. He could really control people, and he could control so many people. How awesome! Wait for me here. Sher Shang let go of Chen Bei and rushed toward those people with his sword. Who cares who they are, I'll cut them down first. Those people were about to speak when they suddenly saw Sher Shang rushing over. They were so shocked that they paused for 2 seconds. They hadn't even spoken yet. Why did you start fighting? Do you know the rules? In just 2 seconds, Sher Shang was already in front of them and finished off one of them with his sword. The other people immediately came back to their senses and attacked at the same time. The Imperial Guards behind them also shot arrows again. Sher Shang was not afraid of being shot by arrows, so he deliberately ran in the middle of them. The imperial guards only knew how to shoot arrows. When Sher Shang was in the middle of them, arrows were shot over without distinguishing between friend and foe. They were so scared that they did not dare to use the imperial guards again. It was very disadvantageous to fight with Sher Shang with weapons, let alone without weapons. One by one, people fell down. Sher Shang saw the disbelief and anger in their eyes. When the last person fell, the imperial guards also returned to normal. They first looked around blankly, then they saw the people lying on the ground and were all shocked. When did these people come in? Your Majesty, are you okay? Ling Yi walked over quickly, his face ashen. What happened just now? Why can't this subordinate remember anything? She fell asleep, right? Sher Shang stepped on a person and held the iron sword with one hand. He looked at Ling Yi like a gangster. Don't fall asleep again next time. You'll lose your life. I can't save you every time. Fell asleep? Your Majesty, are you kidding? You ordered the imperial guards to shoot arrows. How could she fall asleep? Sher Shang squatted down and used the iron sword to lift the face mask of the person on the ground. He did not recognize him. Don't let him commit suicide. Sher Shang ordered Ling Yi. Ling Yi was still thinking about what happened just now. When he heard Sher Shang's order, he could only temporarily suppress his doubts. He bent down and pulled the person up. He pinched his chin and asked someone to stuff a piece of cloth into his mouth. Sher Shang. He was very skilled. He must have done this often. Ling Yi blinked. He did not understand why His Majesty was looking at him like that. Sher Shang had people tie these people up before dragging Yu Lu out and tying him up so that he could share the fruits with them. The imperial guards pointed their crossbows at them. They looked like they were about to be executed. Yu Ruliu did not understand this empress at all. At this moment, he lowered his head helplessly. Compared to the person who was gagged, Yu Ruliu's treatment was better. At least his mouth was not gagged. I'm going to ask you questions now. You only need to nod or shake your head. Sher Shang walked around in front of them. His bright yellow dragon robe was almost blinding. First question. Are you from the Shu Kingdom? They did not shake their heads or answer. Sher Shang waited for a few seconds. Suddenly, he raised his hand. The imperial guards behind him immediately released their arrows. The arrows pierced right in front of them. Next time, they'll pierce your body. Don't worry, you won't die. I'll let them shoot at you. Of course, if they miss and hit something. Sher Shang's gaze swept across their crotches. He laughed sinisterly and said slowly, That's not good. Everyone immediately clamped their legs together. Sometimes, they could lose their lives, but they could not lose their family jewels. Was this AF * King Empress? Was she really not a pervert? #hashtag today, please vote for Jolie Xiang #hashtag monthly vote, monthly vote, monthly vote #hashtag monthly vote, sob sob. Chapter 1632. Pervert Shang smiled. Are you from the Shu Kingdom? They clamped their legs together and refused to answer. They glared at Sher Shang with hatred in their eyes, as if he had killed their father. Sher Shang waved his hand lazily. Kill them. The imperial guards released their arrows. The arrows instantly pierced these people into a hornet's nest, and they could not even scream. Yu Ruliu was speechless. This fickle woman. Your Majesty, where is she? Ling Yi pointed at the only survivor. Sher Shang looked at Yu Ruliu with melancholy. She could not kill this female lead. Yu Ruliu was speechless. What did that expression mean? Try and see if you can kill her, Sher Shang said to Ling Yi. Yes. Ling Yi agreed without hesitation. Her mission was to carry out His Majesty's orders unconditionally. Even if His Majesty wanted her to die, she had to carry it out. Yu Ruliu was a little flustered. She said that she wanted to kill her, and she probably meant it. Just look at the fate of the people around her. Wait a minute, I can tell you where the antidote is. Let me go. Didn't you say that you wanted to exchange the antidote for Chen Bei? Shi Shang looked at Yu Ruliu with a faint smile. The woman's gaze seemed to be oppressive. Yu Ruliu felt as if there was a huge rock hanging above her head that could take her life at any time. She resisted the pressure and looked at Chen Bei, but the latter looked at her coldly. He did not show any trace of worry or pity. She had always known that the seventh prince was a cold-blooded person, right? There was nothing to be sad about. Yu Ruliu gritted her teeth. There is only one antidote. Besides me, only one person in this world knows about it. Unfortunately, that person will never tell you where the antidote is. Your Majesty, you can consider my proposal. I will tell you where the antidote is, and you let me go. What if I don't? Then your Majesty will not live for long. Yu Ruliu was burning her boats. If she wanted to leave this place now, she could only make a deal. If you die, the seventh prince will not have a good ending. Your Majesty, you have to think carefully. Oh my! The female lead is threatening I again. Where is I's sword? Whoosh! The iron sword drew an arc in the air and a silvery white light flashed. The sharp edge of the sword brushed past Yu Ruliu's arm. Her body tilted and the entire chair fell to the ground. The iron sword struck the chair's leg and shattered it into pieces. Yu Ruliu was probably scared out of his wits. He panted heavily, and the cold gleam of the iron sword still lingered in his eyes. She yelled at Shi Shang, "Are you really not afraid of death?" "I'm not afraid. Everyone is bound to die. Death may be lighter than a goose feather or heavier than Mount Tai. This Bao Bao is a person with awareness. How can I be afraid of death? In any case, it was just rewinding and changing dimensions." Yu Ruliu was speechless and did not say a word for a long time. What else could she say? He wasn't even afraid of death. He, host, do you dare to be more pretentious? Wasn't he just relying on the fact that he could come back after dying? Why don't you show off if you can? Shi Shang rolled his eyes and cursed the system in his mind. What did the system do again? It only said one sentence. Do you have to curse the system so many times? Lunatic. How infuriating. Master, I can't maintain my normal operation anymore. I'm going to crash. Help. Yu Ruliu's negotiation had failed. She started to think of other ways. However, she was so aggrieved that her mind was blank. There was nothing she could do. She looked up at the Imperial Guards who were walking towards her. Her eyes were red as she glared at the person who was about to be blocked by the Imperial Guards. If she didn't die today, she would definitely remember this grudge. Yu Ruliu was lifted up by the Imperial Guards and tied up in the middle. A few archers aimed at her. Puff puff, the sound of arrows piercing flesh could be heard. Yu Ruliu's body was pierced by a few arrows and she looked like a porcupine. One of the arrows pierced her chest and pierced her heart. Fresh blood flowed out. She stared at Shi Shang with wide eyes, as if she wanted to imprint him into her heart. Shi Shang had already prepared himself for the female lead to be rescued. However, the female lead had died just like that. EXM. This was not in line with the plot. Did she get the wrong script? Or was this not the female lead? That shouldn't be the case. When she tried to kill her, she clearly felt the resistance. It was obviously the protagonist's halo. However, it was slightly weaker than the other protagonists she had met before. Host pray. What? You're in the timeline before the female lead was reborn. You shouldn't be the one who killed the female lead and caused her to be reborn with hatred. So now... The system was gloating. Prepare to receive the female lead's crazy revenge. Who told you to kill the female lead for no reason? Now you're getting your retribution. Ha ha ha, the commoners were so happy today. You mean she'll be reborn? Shi Shang narrowed her eyes. No wonder the male lead didn't appear. Before the female lead was reborn, the male lead might still be playing in the mud somewhere. Yes. This is the timeline before her rebirth. Of course, she'll be reborn. Oh. Then you must know who she'll be reborn into? Of course I know. The system suddenly stopped talking. Host, I'm warning you. I won't tell you. I'm a system with integrity. Even if you threaten me, it's useless. I'll never tell you. It swore to protect its privacy. The system wouldn't compromise so easily. Of course, if the host threatened it violently, it could be wronged. After all, it was a flexible system. Shi Shang's lips curved into a beautiful smile. You don't have to tell me. I already know the information I want. What? The system was horrified. Even its tone became a little unsteady. Host, what do you know? Guess. Guess your grandpa. Host, what information did you get from the system this time? Can you stop making wild guesses? The system didn't express any other meaning. The system hurriedly replayed its conversation with Shi Shang. It looked at it carefully several times. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with it. Ever since the start of these worlds, the host's behavior had been strange. It seemed like he was testing something, or confirming something. Testing? Confirming? The system was shocked. It sent dozens of messages to Caesar in a second. A clear voice sounded. It's too late. All the messages were intercepted. Failed to send. Failed to send. The system looked at the person outside holding the familiar tablet and suddenly exploded. Didn't you forget to bring Xinxing? When she left, it remembered clearly that the little lowly Xinxing was hugging Shi Feng's leg and standing outside with a sad face. He didn't bring her at all. I didn't bring Xinxing, but I brought something else. This is different. Shi Shang shook the tablet. It was indeed different from Xinxing, but it was obviously a highly intelligent thing. Host, calm down. I can explain it. The system said weakly. Chapter 1633. Why don't you explain? Cough cough, actually, this is for your own good. If I really put you into the real world, wouldn't you destroy it? The system was very guilty. It alone, no, a system alone couldn't handle the host's anger. Master, save me. For my own good? Bull*T, who was this for? Then why did you lie to me? This is because if you knew that this was still a virtual world, you definitely wouldn't focus on completing the test. Instead, you would think about how to destroy the world. Was it easy for them? Wasn't it because the host was too scary? You destroyed the world without saying anything. This was all Master's idea. The system started to shift the blame. I was just following Master's orders. I didn't know anything. So, there was a script. Host, you're not focusing on the right thing. Probably. It suddenly felt like it was going to lose contact with its master again. No. It didn't want to be a left-behind system. Then you lied to me when you said that there was no way to exchange for items? I knew that I couldn't believe a single word of this retard. This is true. Zero and Master have reached an agreement. I can't use items to help you, so I can't open the system store. The system felt wronged. What did it do? It was just carrying out a mission. Why was it always the one getting hurt in the end? Host, can you explain to me how you know? Shi Shang seemed to be in a good mood. He actually answered the system's question. I didn't believe it from the start. She didn't believe that Caesar would dare to put her into the real world. He might have the guts, but Zero might not. Although she came as a soul, she had the space. She could also bring things from other worlds back. Zero wouldn't let such a big risk exist. Most importantly, if she really went to the real world, it would be almost impossible for Zero to see the situation there. She knew the rules of spacetime. Host, I'm curious. Why did you agree to Master's request? According to the host's personality, even if it was for Feng Ci, she would use more violent means. For example, she would capture Zero, then capture Master and threaten him. That would be in line with the host's character. Why should I tell you? You're not on my side. Shi Shang coldly snorted. The system was crying inside. If it could it betray him? Why didn't you bring Shenxing? Shenxing was so useful, but the host didn't bring him here this time. There must be a trap. I'm not telling you. Take a guess. Host, you're asking for a beating. The system felt wronged and did not want to speak. It tried to send a message to Caesar, but the message kept popping up with failed messages. The system fiddled with it for a while but did not send a message. In the end, it could only give up. Based on its previous experience, the system quickly prepared itself mentally and was ready to betray its own master and temporarily seek refuge with its new master. Who asked him to be a big shot now? That's what you get for your cheap mouth. Do you still have the guts to run your mouth? The first few times, it felt a little strange. Damn, that was just its host trying to get information out of it, but it didn't realize it at all. Master, have you not recharged my IQ for a long time? When the system began to suspect that something was wrong, Shi Shang had already asked someone to clean up the place and brought Chen Bei to another room. Chen Bei was silent from beginning to end. What are you thinking about? Shi Shang reached out and waved his hand in front of his eyes. Your Highness, the seventh prince, come back to your senses. Chen Bei subconsciously grabbed her hand and said in a doting tone that he was not familiar with, don't mess around. After saying that, he was stunned. His gaze fell on her hand, and then he looked up at Shi Shang. He looked very confused. What happened just now? Why did he speak in that tone? Shi Shang circled his fingers and slightly tightened his grip. He tilted his head and asked, what use do you have for the Imperial Jade Seal? Chen Bei was still staring at her hand. After a while, he said, the people of Shui country control the entire royal family of Shu country. My Imperial Mother is also in it. Only by taking back the Imperial Jade Seal can my Imperial Mother be safe. Unfortunately, the Imperial Jade Seal was destroyed by you. Shi Shang frowned slightly. Now that one of the Imperial Jade Seals has been destroyed, it's impossible for the people of Shui country to open the road to Shui country, right? So now, the people of Shu country are useless to them. They will either let those people go or kill them. There were only two choices. There was nothing to guess. There's another way to open the road to Shui country. Chen Bei said lightly. What? Shi Shang had a bad premonition. This background setting was very suitable for the female lead. Damn it. The Holy Maiden of Shui country. Every 100 years, a holy maiden will be born in Shui country. Her blood can open up Shui country. Very good. No matter how many settings there was an 80% chance that blood and the holy maiden would not be missing. And this holy maiden was 90% likely to be the female lead, 9% likely to be the evil female supporting character, and 5% of the last 9% likely to be a mistake. In fact, she was still the female lead. The last 1% likely to be the female lead's friend. How do you know so much? Shi Shang leaned over and looked straight into Chen Bei's eyes. Are you really not from Shui country? Chen Bei shook his head. He shook his head a little too much, and his lips brushed past Shi Shang's cheek. Chen Bei was now very calm and allowed Shi Shang to pounce on him. I once saw a handwritten letter that recorded the secret history of Shui country, including the use of the Imperial Jade Seal. Chen Bei sat up a little so that Shi Shang would not fall down. He supported himself with one hand and tilted his head back. His gaze fell on the void. Yes, there are many other things, such as the art of controlling sound, the art of prophecy, the art of puppetry, the art of soul transfer. Seeing Shi Shang look at him strangely, Chen Bei hurriedly said, I only learned the art of controlling sound. This is the only one that doesn't require the bloodline of Shui country to learn. The others can only be learned with the bloodline of Shui country. Did you see anything similar to prophecy in the handwritten letter? How do you know? Shi Shang pulled the corners of his mouth into an unfathomable smile. It's all a trick. Of course I know. Seeing that Shi Shang did not say anything, Chen Bei pursed his lips and said, on the last page of the handwritten letter, there is a row of words written in blood. It looks like it was written in a panic, 100 years of sleep, waking up every night. All things are respected, 100 beasts cry. The arrival of the Holy Maiden, the restoration of Shwe country. The literal meaning of this sentence was that after 100 years of sleep, when a person was respected by all things in the world and 100 beasts cried, it was the time for the Holy Maiden to descend. The Holy Maiden would lead them to restore Shwe country. But it has been more than 100 years since Shwe country was destroyed, right? It had to be, a few hundred years, right? Could it be that there was no Holy Maiden during this period? Chen Bei shook his head. How could he know this? He was not from Shwe country. Chapter 1634. When the female lead died, Shi Shang had no idea where she would be reborn, but she could cheat now. Under Shi Shang's coercion, the system had no choice but to contribute the script. The female lead was still called Yu Ruliu, but her reborn identity was called Morning and Night. This corresponded to the prophecy. According to the script, Yu Ruliu was an orphan before she was reborn. Because she was saved by Chen Bei's mother, she became a palace maid in the palace. Later, Chen Bei's mother trained her to be a guard with good martial arts. Yu Ruliu liked Chen Bei, but Chen Bei did not like her. Because he had that letter, Chen Bei wanted to get the treasure of Shwe country. So when Shwe country controlled Shu country, he started to plan. He pretended to be threatened and went to Feng Wan to get the jade seal. The process was not written. Anyway, Chen Bei did not get the jade seal in the end. Instead, he went crazy. Yu Ruliu still liked Chen Bei, but in the end, she was given to a bully by Chen Bei and was tortured to death. After Yu Ruliu was reborn, she realized that she had given the wrong person and her love for Chen Bei turned into hatred. After that, Yu Ruliu learned of her reborn identity and mission. She started to revive Shwe country, unraveled a conspiracy, and took revenge. Finally, she walked to the peak of life with her male idol. Chen Bei was not the original Chen Bei, so his actions were different from before. He did not complete the mission to reset the female lead. Now, she completed the mission. So she was now the female lead's enemy? King retard. In the entire script, Feng Wan was just a cannon fodder. The kind that only showed their face and then went offline to get a lunchbox. And she was just a piece of clothing for this cannon fodder character. WTF. A high-class, high-damage boss like me is just a piece of clothing? No. You're not even a piece of clothing. The system retorted fearlessly. Because after the female lead was reborn, Feng Wan had already changed hands. She had already turned into a skeleton and was buried in the dark imperial tomb. Shi Shang. You're not interesting. You're making me, a boss, lose to a messenger. No. So angry. Where's Ai's sword? I didn't ask you to counterattack. The system retorted. Didn't you want to date properly? Now that I'm asking you to date properly, you're saying that you're the one who caught the thief, and you're also the one who let the thief go. Why don't you go to heaven? That's true. Chen Bei looked at the person lying on top of him in confusion. She had been absent-minded since the beginning. He really suspected that if he killed her, there was a 90% chance that he would succeed. Shi Shang rested his chin on her hand that was placed on his chest. His eyelashes fluttered, and he refused to communicate with the retarded butt face. Instead, he wrapped his arms around his neck and rubbed against it. My dear concubine, I don't want to attend morning court today. Chen Bei. Which day do you want to attend morning court? Chen Bei heard the sound of people walking around outside. Soon, someone came in and asked her to go to the morning court. Sure enough, as soon as Chen Bei had this thought, he heard someone knocking on the door. Shi Shang buried herself in his chest with an expression of wanting to die. Chen Bei found it a little funny and could not help but touch her head. She was the cutest when she was fooling around every morning and refused to attend morning court. Your Majesty, it's time for morning court. Ling Yi stood behind the heavy curtain and respectfully repeated the words that he had said hundreds of times. Shi Shang was unmoved and said in a muffled voice, "Today, Ling Yi cut off Shi Shang first. Your Majesty, the imperial doctor said that your body is very good and there's nothing wrong with it. So don't pretend to be sick. I seem to. Your Majesty, your period has just passed 7 days ago." Shi Shang. Chen Bei helped her up. "You dawdled until the end. Didn't you still have to go? Get up." Shi Shang sat cross-legged on the bed and said domineeringly, "I want to be a fatuous ruler. Just say that I'm addicted to the imperial concubine's beauty and can't get up. That's it." Imperial concubine Chen Bei. Ling Yi took a deep breath. "Your Majesty, do you want to be scolded by that group of ministers in the throne room?" "Scold, let them scold. They're not allowed to leave until they've finished scolding for 4 hours. Shi Shang was furious. "No repeating, no resting, no drinking water. Whoever dares to stop will have their salary deducted. Is there an imperial concubine like you? Urging the ministers to scold you, and even deducting your salary if they don't scold you. Do you think that there's nothing I can do?" "Your Majesty, according to the schedule, the army will send news today. Are you sure you don't want to go to the morning court?" Shi Shang. In the end, Shi Shang still dawdled and got up. He really didn't know how those emperors could climb out of their gentle homes and sit on the cold dragon throne so early. Beloved concubine. Chen Bei, who was tying Shi Shang's belt, raised his head slightly. Shi Shang leaned over and bit his pink lips. "Come with me." "Your Majesty, don't joke. The throne room is a place to discuss politics." "How can I go?" Chen Bei continued to tie his belt and straighten the dragon-shaped buckle in front. "Wait for me at the back. Listen to how they scold me. It's so boring to listen to them alone." Shi Shang reached out and hugged Chen Bei's arm. "Chen Bei, are you sure you want me to listen to the ministers scold me? What's there to show off?" In other countries, if a minister dared to scold the emperor, his entire family would have been executed long ago. Shi Shang also wanted to execute his entire family, but if the imperial court was executed again, she would have to be a commander without an army. Who would work for her? Chen Bei felt that his acceptance of Shi Shang was a little inexplicable. Unknowingly, he had allowed her to become a part of his daily life. Some tacit understanding did not need to be cultivated, as if they had done it many times before. Chen Bei also wanted to hear the news from the kingdom of Shu, so he did not reject Shi Shang's suggestion. He changed his clothes and followed Shi Shang to the throne room. There was a room at the side of the throne room, and Chen Bei was placed here. Probably because they knew that he was coming, everything was rearranged according to the specifications of the bedchamber. The morning court had already begun in the throne room. He stood by the door and could see the scene outside through the door and window. It was not as magnificent as the rumors said. "Your Majesty, the soldiers have already reached the border of the kingdom of Shu. There is not much movement from the kingdom of Shu for the time being. However, the kingdom of Kaiyang is getting restless. We are worried that the kingdom of Kaiyang will join forces with the kingdom of Shu to surround us from behind. When that time comes." Back then, this old man said that it was not safe to pass through the kingdom of Kaiyang. Now that we have sent our people into the crack, a crisis has appeared before the battle has even started. Why didn't you object back then? Now that the soldiers have arrived, what's the use of you saying that? The ministers had not even said a few words before they started arguing. Anyway, the imperial court was more or less like this. As long as the people above did not say anything, they could turn the imperial court into a debate competition. The loser would have to take responsibility. However, in the imperial court of the kingdom of Fengyuan, in the end, these people would point their spears at the person on the dragon throne. "Your Majesty, you insist on attacking the kingdom of Shu. Until now, you have not given us an explanation." Shi Shang's hand that was cracking melon seeds paused. "It's here. It's time for this baby to go on stage. Where is the applause?" All right, there was no applause. There were only dozens of pairs of eyes that were staring at her, ready to spit fire in the next second. Sher Shang calmly threw the melon seed shell on the memorial at the side, clapped his hands, and cleared his throat. This matter. There is no particularly important reason. It's just that I don't like the kingdom of Shu. Chapter 1635. There's no important reason? Just because you don't like Shu. You want to confiscate property at the slightest disagreement, and now you want to destroy a country at the slightest disagreement. Your Majesty, do you want to go to heaven? Because of Sher Shang's words, there was an uproar below. They couldn't wait to drag Sher Shang out and chop him up. Of course, they didn't dare. Thus, the following conversation went like this: Minister, Your Majesty, you should come up with a plan. We can't let Kaiyong country surround us. Sher Shang, this is what the general who leads the army should consider. What does it have to do with me? Asterisk flips table asterisk, aren't you the Empress of Fangwan country? Minister, Your Majesty, this old minister suggests that we keep an eye on Kaiyong country and make arrangements early. Sher Shang, you guys go and make arrangements yourselves. What does it have to do with me? Asterisk flips table asterisk damn. You have the military power. How are they going to make arrangements? Anyway, no matter what they said, she would just say, what does it have to do with me? And dismiss them. She was so angry that they would have a heart attack. They had never seen an empress like this. She was the most willful empress in history. The courtiers were jumping around happily. Sher Shang didn't speak, so they could only jump around and scold her. Sher Shang yawned and let them scold her. The court was as noisy as a market. When they were almost done scolding, Sher Shang waved his hand and left as if nothing had happened. Minister. They scolded her for nothing again. Sher Shang went to the room to look for Chen Bei. The latter looked at her strangely. He had never seen an empress being scolded by courtiers like this. Do you think they're noisy? Sher Shang asked disdainfully. Oh, it's all right. Wasn't the court like this? It was just that her court was much noisier than others. It's all right. My wife is amazing. Shu country. He listened for a long time just now, but they only mentioned Shu country a few sentences. They didn't even give a general idea. Sher Shang took out a memorial from his sleeve and waved it in front of Chen Bei. Do you want to know? Chen Bei looked at the memorial and then looked at Sher Shang. He tactfully took the initiative to kiss her on the face and took the memorial. He immediately stepped back and put some distance between him and Sher Shang. You've learned your lesson. Sher Shang chuckled. Seeing that she was not angry, Chen Bei lowered his head and opened the memorial. It reported the progress of the army and the detailed situation of the Shu kingdom. Because the army had just arrived at the border of the Shu kingdom, they did not know much about the internal situation of the Shu kingdom. In the face of their declaration of war, the Shu kingdom adopted a mode of not responding. Don't worry. I've already sent someone to the palace to save your imperial concubine. Sher Shang patted the back of Chen Bei's hand. Chen Bei closed the memorial and replied in a low voice, N. Sher Shang stepped forward and hugged him. I'm here. What exactly does your Majesty like about me? He had always been curious. They had never met before, so why was she so certain about him? I like everything about you. Chen Bei could tell that there was a hidden meaning in her words, and his ears started to burn. The person who was hugging him was like a ball of fire that could ignite at any time. He pushed her away in a flurry, and his gaze fell on the void. Let's go back to the palace, Your Majesty. Then, without waiting for the Sher Shang, he ran out of the hall. She's still so cute, Sher Shang murmured. I really like her. In the beginning, Shu Kingdom did not respond. Later on, they were forced into a corner by Feng Wan and had no choice but to send troops to fight. Feng Wan's troops, who were led by surprise troops, were as powerful as they were on drugs. They advanced triumphantly, and in a short span of 2 days, they took down half of Shu Kingdom's territory. But at this time, Kaiyong Kingdom, which had been quiet all this time, suddenly sent troops to support Shu Kingdom. They formed a siege strategy with Shu Kingdom, sandwiching Feng Wan's troops in the middle. Feng Wan's provisions were cut off, and they fell into a crisis. At this time, Chen Bei's imperial concubine, who was being escorted back to Feng Wan, was kidnapped halfway. She only left behind a letter to be sent to the Shi Sheng. The general idea was to let her go to a certain place alone. Otherwise, they would kill Chen Bei's imperial concubine. "Your Majesty, you can't do that." Ling Yi was the first to object. "Who knows if this is the enemy's conspiracy? You are the emperor, how can you go alone? This official is willing to bring people to save her." "I'll go." Chen Bei also objected. This was his matter, and he should not implicate her. The Shi Shang repeatedly looked at the letter, and the corner of his mouth hooked up into a playful smile. "They are coming for me. What's the use of you going?" Because she had destroyed the imperial jade seal and killed their men, how could they possibly swallow this anger? Ling Yi's expression stiffened. "But your Majesty, you go and bring the Duke of Huainan here." The Shi Shang threw the letter to the side. Ling Yi was puzzled. Why did he summon the Duke of Huainan at this time? Ever since the Duke of Huainan said that matter, he had been under house arrest in the palace. His Majesty never said that he wanted to see him. The Duke of Huainan himself was also puzzled. Why did the Shi Shang want to see him at this time? When he arrived at the main hall, the Duke of Huainan saw the Shi Shang holding a square thing and pressing it against the imperial edict. If he did not see wrong, that should be the imperial jade seal, right? Didn't they say that the imperial jade seal was destroyed? The corner of Ling Yi's mouth also twitched. She completely did not know where His Majesty got a fake imperial jade seal. When did she do it? After the Shi Shang stamped the imperial jade seal, he took out the imperial edict and threw it to Ling Yi. "If I don't come back, read this imperial edict." "Your Majesty, you can't go." Ling Yi did not even have time to look at the contents of the imperial edict, and hurriedly stopped the Shi Shang. How could she go? She was the empress. "When I leave, the Duke of Huainan will be the regent." The Shi Shang did not care about Ling Yi at all. The Duke of Huainan, who was called out, raised his head in surprise. He still did not understand what happened. How could he be the regent? And although he was dressed as a woman, he knew that he was a man. To let a man be the regent, there was no empress in the history of Feng Wan who dared to do this. "Your Majesty." The Shi Shang got up and walked out. "This matter is settled. Don't talk nonsense with me. Anyway, if I want to leave, none of you can stop me." "Your Majesty." Ling Yi was so anxious that she was sweating. How could His Majesty make a decision like this? She chased after the Shi Shang, but did not even see a ghost. "Ling Yi, what the hell is going on?" The Duke of Huainan was still in a daze. Ling Yi held the imperial edict and told the Duke of Huainan what happened before. The Duke of Huainan's face gradually became serious with Ling Yi's words. "You must stop His Majesty." How could His Majesty do such a dangerous thing in person? Ling Yi and the Duke of Huainan reached an agreement and called the imperial guards to guard the palace gate. They went to the Shi Shang's palace, but when they arrived, they were told by the palace maids that the Shi Shang had just left with the imperial concubine. She actually took the imperial concubine? Was she crazy? A group of people anxiously looked for them all over the palace. They had to find them even if they had to dig 3 feet into the ground. Unfortunately, they did not find them in the end. No one at the palace gate saw the Shi Shang and Chen Bei leave the palace. It was as if they had disappeared into thin air. What the hell? Asterisk begging for votes. Begging for votes. Chapter 1636. The man in the bamboo hat was stunned for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "Your Majesty, you really can't be underestimated." He wasn't too surprised by what had happened in Snow Country. After all, it was an ancient country. It was normal for them to have some tricks up their sleeves. "Of course I can't be underestimated." Shi Shang's brows were full of confidence. It was as if he was standing on a throne and giving orders. The shabby town around them dimmed. The man in the bamboo hat. Can't you be a little more humble? How arrogant and conceited. Humph. The man in the bamboo hat snorted in his heart. He didn't want to argue with Shi Shang. Your Majesty, please. You'll know what you need to know later. I'm not going. Who knows where you're taking me? There must be a trap. I'm not going. There are always idiots who want to harm me. I'm afraid. The man in the bamboo hat. The man in the bamboo hat was a little speechless when Shi Shang refused to go, but he didn't panic. After all, he had experienced Shi Shang's unconventional character before. Your Majesty, didn't you come here for the 7th prince's mother? If you want the 7th prince's mother back, please come with us, Your Majesty. The man in the bamboo hat squeezed out a kind expression. Will you kill me? The man in the bamboo hat's mouth twitched. How could he answer that? The man in the bamboo hat took a deep breath. Your Majesty, please cooperate with us. We won't hurt you. Do you think I'm a fool? You guys are brainless. Do you think everyone else is as brainless as you? If I, Zhen, were to follow you, would I, Zhen, be able to leave this place alive? Shi Shang scoffed before letting out a sinister laugh. Zhen, will kill you first. She had destroyed the imperial jade seal. Would these people be willing to let her go? If it were her, she would kill them to vent her anger. Since she knew this would happen, she couldn't even protect herself. How could she have the time to care about an NPC? In Chen Bei's memory, even if he cared about that NPC, he would never let her take the risk. Your Majesty, you... Before the man in the bamboo hat could finish his words, he was shocked by the sword energy that came toward him. The iron sword slashed wildly, forcing the bamboo hat man to retreat behind those people. Catch her! Shi Shang kicked away the people in front of him and went straight to the bamboo hat man. When the bamboo hat man faced the iron sword, he always felt an inexplicable chill, which made him unable to move his hands and feet. What kind of evil sword was that? The man in the bamboo hat gritted his teeth. Seeing that most of his men had been killed, he reluctantly retreated. He thought that she would be obedient, but he didn't expect her to be so difficult to deal with. Where there's life, there's hope. Let's retreat first. The man in the bamboo hat quickly ran into a nearby alley. He was very familiar with this small town, so it shouldn't be a problem to get rid of her. Where would you like to go? A light voice sounded from behind him. The bamboo hat man's body suddenly stiffened, and he turned his head to look behind him with a stiff face. The woman held her sword with one hand and looked at him with a smile. That smile was like a black lotus blooming on the edge of a cliff, filled with endless malice, the kind that was not concealed at all. The man in the bamboo hat forced himself to calm down. Your Majesty, if you kill me, the mother of the man you love will be buried with me, and you won't be able to cure the poison in your body. The woman in front of him was still smiling brightly, and blood-red liquid flowed out of the black lotus, and all the malice was invaded by the evil aura. He heard her say, "No, you're not worthy to sacrifice to my sword." The nest of this group of people was in a valley behind the small town. Shi Shang led the man in the bamboo hat into the valley, and she swaggered in. Immediately, a horn sounded in the valley, and a woman was pushed to the front. "Stop! If you don't stop, I'll kill her." A man held her and shouted at Shi Shang. The woman's eyes were listless, and her clothes were a little dirty, but they weren't tattered, which meant that she hadn't suffered inhumane torture. Shi Shang slowly pulled out the blood-stained iron sword, turned his head to look at the man, and sneered. "Do you think you're the only one with a bargaining chip?" Shi Shang motioned for them to look behind them. Chen Bei dragged the man in the bamboo hat in, who was tied up. "Didn't I tell you not to come back no matter what happened?" When the woman saw Chen Bei, her listless eyes suddenly flashed with fear. "What are you doing here? Go. I said I would save you." Chen Bei pushed the man in the bamboo hat in front of Shi Shang, and his gaze fell on the woman. His tone was calm, without much warmth, as if he was just fulfilling a promise. I don't want you to save me. I just want you to be fine. Go. The woman shouted in a hoarse voice. I'm already here. Chanbei's tone was calm. There's no way out. The direction they came in was surrounded by the people of Snow Country, and their escape route was cut off. The woman cried silently. Why did you come? Why? Use her in exchange for him. Shi Shang waited for Chanbei to finish speaking, and then pointed the iron sword at the woman and the man in the bamboo hat. The man in the bamboo hat had a high status. Although the people on the other side didn't immediately agree, they didn't immediately deny it either. After a while, someone stood up. We can exchange, but there's one more condition. Shi Shang chuckled. Sorry, you don't have the right to negotiate with me. That person choked. It's just a small condition. We just need a few drops of your blood. Blood? What do you want my blood for? Shi Shang looked at them suspiciously. Are you crazy? She wasn't a saint. What was the use of her blood? You're the crazy one. Your whole family is crazy. The person who spoke took a deep breath. You don't have to worry about that. Just give it to us. This woman destroyed the imperial jade seal. They didn't intend to let her go, but the current situation was no longer up to them. Is my blood something you can take just because you want it? No. There must be a conspiracy. I won't give it to you. Since your Majesty knows about Snow Country, you should also know what we're going to do, right? The man in the bamboo hat said. Your blood can help us open Snow Country. It shouldn't be difficult for your Majesty to help us, right? Shi Shang put his hands on his hips. Who the hell told you that my blood can open Snow Country? Princess Zhaoxi. Shi Shang. WTF? Zhaoxi. The female lead's identity after she was reborn. Female lead, that's enough. Didn't you just get reborn? You shouldn't know anything. You're still in the stage of being naive and sweet. Why do you know everything about Snow Country now? This script isn't right, director. Shi Shang was furious. You believe everything she says? Don't you have brains? I'm just an ordinary person. Firstly, I'm not a descendant of Snow Country. Secondly, I don't have any special abilities. How can I open the door for you? Do you think it will open just because you read Open Sesame? Please bring some brains with you when you go out. Everyone, how are you ordinary? As the empress of a country, she dared to come here alone. How is she ordinary? Your Majesty, we just want a little bit of your blood. Whether it works or not, we'll know when the time comes. This deal is still very profitable for your Majesty. Profitable your ass. It's not your blood. Of course you'd say it's profitable. Wasn't it just a little bit of blood? Was there a need to be so agitated? Shi Shang couldn't be bothered to argue with these idiots. He asked Chanbei to stay where he was while he charged forward aggressively. Chapter 1637. The people of Snow Country are all dead. The girl, who was about 15 or 16 years old, was shocked by the sudden voice. She stood up immediately and looked around. Finally, she stopped and asked, "How did you know?" "I have my own ways." The voice sounded again. "She already knows that you did it. The rest of the people of Snow Country are all dead." Euryliu's face turned pale. "How can that be? Isn't Snow Country so powerful?" "Snow Country has some unorthodox techniques, not fighting techniques. They are no match for her." "Then, is it my turn next?" Euryliu clenched her fists. That woman would not let go of anyone who went against her. Even if she did not know that she was Euryliu, she would not let her go. "Yes, she will not let you go. What should I do?" "You still have a chance." "What chance?" "Chanbei." "No. The seventh prince can't." Euryliu shook her head. "The seventh prince can't, he." "Why not?" He is her only weakness. The voice sounded doubtful. Yuruliu kept quiet. She could not let anyone know that she was not Xiaoxi. Princess Xiaoxi, think about your mission. The revival of Snow Country depends on you. She has already helped us get rid of those traitors. As long as we get rid of her, the revival of Snow Country will not be difficult. The voice became distant and gradually disappeared from the room. Yuruliu stood in the room for a long time. Finally, she stood up and walked out of the room. Princess Xiaoxi of Kaiyong Country was leading the troops. When the Fenghuan troops were attacking Shu Country, they suddenly attacked the capital of Fenghuan. Most of the military power was in Shi Shang's hands. While she wasn't in Fenghuan, Kai Yang's troops were able to take down several cities without any obstructions. This kind of victory came too quickly, causing Yu Lu to be pleasantly surprised. She did not expect Fenghuan to be so easy to attack. She led the Kaiyong troops and attacked the capital. Yuruliu also felt that something was off, but he could not pinpoint what was wrong. The cities that were attacked would fight back with blood. No one would surrender without a fight. They just lacked a leader to lead the troops. They did not have a strategy. On the day when the troops arrived, Yuruliu still felt that it was a little unreal. Everything happened too quickly. On the city gate tower, the Empress, who was dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe, slowly ascended with the imperial concubine. She looked down at the soldiers below, and there was no trace of panic on her face. There was only calmness. Even the ministers, who were usually lively, were standing quietly behind her at this moment. Yuruliu, long time no see. The general in red was stunned. His eyes were filled with disbelief. She actually knew. But so what? She was the one who was under siege. Yuruliu calmed down. Xianyang, you have nowhere to run. This is my world. How can there be no way? Your world? Is this still your world? With you in that position, who would listen to you? Now, the entire Phoenix Luan is under my control. Shi Sheng shrugged. It's a pity that your Mizar has changed hands. What? Yuruliu was stunned. There had been no news from Kaiyang, so how could there be a change in ownership? The snow-white bird circled above Shi Shang's head. It chirped, and the sound was especially ear-piercing at this moment. Ghost General, Feng Wan's Ghost General. An old general in Kaiyong's army muttered in disbelief when he saw the snow-white bird. How is this possible? Wasn't the Ghost General's army wiped out back then? What Ghost Generals? Yuruliu looked at the old general in confusion. The Ghost Generals are a special force of Phoenix Luan. They are very powerful. The old general replied. The special force that the Duke of Huainan gave to Shi Shang was called the Tiger Guards. However, there was another name for them in the outside world. They were called Ghost Generals because they appeared and disappeared mysteriously. They were once a nightmare for many people. It was because of the Ghost Generals that those powerful countries did not dare to attack Phoenix Luan. Only a few people who had fought with the Ghost Generals or members of the royal family knew that Phoenix Luan had such a special force. However, they knew enough. No one was willing to fight against the Ghost Generals. Back then, in order to give the Ghost Generals a reasonable reason to disappear, the Empress purposely let the Ghost Generals be wiped out on the battlefield. Shi Shang felt that these people were really restrained. They clearly had such a useful thing, but they did not use it. Instead, they used it to scheme. They wanted to preserve their strength and did not want to sacrifice people. However, in the end, more people were sacrificed than if they used force. Darling, come here. Shi Shang reached out his hand to Chen Bei. Chen Bei glanced at the ministers who were looking down. He held on to Shi Shang's hand and ascended to a high place. Your Majesty. Shi Shang returned a smile. Chen Bei sighed and took a small flag from Ling Yi. He raised the flag high and waved it in the air. The red flag was very eye-catching, like a burning flame. Bang! The signal flare was shot into the sky along with the flag. Charge! Charge! The sound of charging could be heard from all directions. The people below the city looked around in panic. They were surrounded. In the midst of the chaos, Euryliu suddenly woke up. No wonder she felt that something was wrong. Those people deliberately lured her in. She deliberately let her in. On the city gate tower, Shishang was still acting cool. "Look, this is the country that we have built for you." Chen Bei was silent. A mountain of corpses and a sea of blood? Shishang raised his eyebrows and smiled. His gentle voice fell into Chen Bei's ears. "There is no throne that is not built with a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood." "I don't like it." Chen Bei hugged his arms and emphasized. "I don't like it." Okay. If you don't like it, then let's go back." Shishang jumped down and carried Chen Bei down. Chen Bei hugged Shishang's neck. "Your Majesty, I want to leave this place." When he first entered the palace, he had expressed his original intention. He did not want to enter this golden cage. There was no freedom. Everything was watched by others. There was no privacy. He hated this kind of world. "Take me with you?" Are you willing to give up all this and leave with me?" This position was not something that everyone could give up. "Do you think that in my heart, you are not as important as that cold chair?" Shishang looked at Chen Bei with a faint smile. Would it be more important than that? Chen Bei did not dare to ask this question. "Don't think so lightly of yourself." Shishang put him down and reached out to brush the hair on his forehead. "You will always be the most important in my heart. My world is where you are. In my world, you are the starting point and also the end." Chen Bei held his breath. His lips parted slightly. "Then, are you willing to leave with me? Give up all this and leave with me." "I am willing." A faint smile finally appeared on Chen Bei's face. Shishang brought him down the city gate tower. Outside the city gate tower, there was a series of explosions. A faint voice could be heard from the explosions. "Why does your Majesty like me so much?" "Because you are good-looking, Your Majesty. Because you are the person I have been looking for." Chapter 1638. Shishang couldn't leave yet. He had to deal with this mess, ensure the safety of Fanghuan, and fulfill the original owner's last wish. Euryliu was on her last breath when she was found. She had just been reborn and hadn't completely merged with the body, so she wasn't as powerful as she was in the later stages. It wasn't difficult to kill her. It wasn't right to say that she was reborn. In fact, she was reborn. Chen Bei had said that there was a soul transfer technique among the things that people of Snow Country could learn. Euryliu's soul was transferred into Chao Shi's body. Chao Shi was indeed the saintess of Snow Country, but she wasn't interested in Snow Country. In fact, she was disgusted and accidentally killed herself. Coincidentally, Euryliu's soul and Chao Shi's body were very compatible. Another group of people of Snow Country had been eyeing Euryliu for a long time. It was all a conspiracy. Shishang took a long time to sort it out before she managed to sort it out. There were two groups of people in Snow Country who wanted to open Snow Country. One of them was the Bamboo Hat Man. The Bamboo Hat Man's group just wanted to open the road to Snow Country, get the legendary medicine that could bring people back to life, and let the people of Snow Country return to Snow Country. The other group was more ambitious. They not only wanted to revive Snow Country, but also wanted to take over the world. The world was given to them by Snow Country, but they didn't feel grateful at all. Instead, they destroyed Snow Country. This was a blood feud. They fought with the Bamboo Hat Man for the Imperial Jade Seal while looking for the Saintess to make preparations. They found the Saintess, but she wasn't interested in Snow Country at all. In the end, she died. They couldn't accept it. So they thought of using the soul transfer technique to find a soul that was compatible with the Saintess's body. So there was the following plot. If Shishang hadn't interfered, the plot would have been pretty good. After all, it was a conspiracy from the beginning. How could the Saintess survive in such a conspiracy? Therefore, after verification, Any conspiracy was just a paper tiger in front of its host. It was useless. Sher Shang dealt with the saintess, cleaned up the mess, left an imperial edict, and left with the fake imperial jade seal. The imperial edict said that the youngest daughter of the famous genius Marquis Changle would be the empress. The Duke of Huainan would be the regent and assist the new empress before she reached adulthood. Lingyi would be the prime minister, and the military power would be kept by the Tiger Guards. When the new empress reached adulthood, she would be the new empress. From the imperial palace, she only took one thing: Feng Jun Chen Bei. The empress who was once scolded by the ministers did not care about anything but the royal concubine. Even when she left, she only took him with her. Everyone said that this was the greatest honor in the world. I am willing to give up everything for you, but I cannot give up on you. In the 7th year of Shihe, the Phoenix Luan Empress took over the reins of power. The entire nation celebrated and pardoned the world. Even the remote town could feel the festive atmosphere from the capital. It was bustling with noise and excitement. Chen Bei placed a few dishes on the stone table in the courtyard and looked up at the roof. "Xian Yang, it's time to eat." A head popped out from the roof and glanced into the courtyard. A moment later, it jumped down. Chen Bei looked disgusted. "Go and wash your body. It's so dirty." "So what if it's dirty?" "You won't sleep with me if it's dirty." Sher Shang glared at him and sat down at the stone table. "If it weren't for you last night, would I be fixing the roof now?" "You started it first." Chen Bei pulled her up and walked into the house. "Who told you not to sleep in the middle of the night?" Sher Shang gritted her teeth. "You deliberately provoked me and still pretended to be innocent." "Chen Bei, you are getting more and more scheming." Chen Bei reached out and took off her clothes. He skillfully peeled off her clothes until only her underwear was left. He took out clean clothes from the cabinet and put them on her. Only then did he say, "Allow me to remind your Majesty that you were the one who started it last night. As for why the roof was damaged in the end, it was a complete accident." "What's wrong with being touchy with my man?" Sher Shang straightened her neck. He shook his head and pressed her in front of the basin. "Wash it clean." Uncle Sher Shang put his hands on his hips. "Wash it for me." Chen Bei accepted his fate and washed Sher Shang clean. "Let's eat." "I'll get someone to fix it later." "I can fix it." "Your Majesty, are you sure?" Chen Bei pointed at the hole that was getting bigger and bigger above his head. Was he repairing the house or tearing it down? Sher Shang looked up. The sun shone down and she could barely open her eyes. She smiled calmly. "I'm going to change the roof." "Your Majesty." Okay. I'll go out and find someone to fix it later." Sher Shang waved his hand. Eat. You're so annoying." She slipped out of the door. Chen Bei shook his head in amusement and took her dirty clothes out. He soaked them in a wooden basin before sitting next to Sher Shang. Sher Shang held her chopsticks and did not move. Chen Bei scooped some soup for her. "Drink the soup first before you eat." "Chen Bei." Sher Shang took a sip and suddenly raised her head to call him. "What's wrong? Doesn't it taste good?" "It's delicious." "I want to ask, what exactly did you throw out last night? It made such a big hole in the roof." "I don't know." "I haven't seen the bag you put at the head of the bed." Chen Bei thought for a moment. "It's quite heavy. What did you put in it?" "The thing at the head of the bed." "At the head of the bed." "Gold." "Where did you get the gold?" Chen Bei was puzzled. "It's gone now." Sher Shang looked like she had nothing to live for. "Where did you throw it?" Chen Bei looked at the roof and pointed in a direction. "It should have fallen over there. Go and look for it after dinner." "It's not easy for me to earn money." "Don't be a prodigal." How could he have a prodigal daughter-in-law at home? "Where did you get the gold?" "I stole it." "Didn't I say that you're not allowed to steal it?" "It's a waste not to steal it." "Your Majesty." "Aren't you annoying?" "Eat." After dinner, The two of them went to the back of the house where the gold might have fallen to look for it. They did not even see the shadow of the gold. There was an alley nearby, so it was very likely that someone had picked it up. Shi Shang did not care much about the gold. She had confiscated the homes of those treacherous officials, so there was still a lot of gold in her small treasury. It was enough for Chen Bei to squander for a while. However, she could not take it out just like that. Otherwise, Chen Bei would lose it in minutes. Without the gold, there was no chance of hiring someone to fix the house. Shi Shang spent half a day fixing it, but it became bigger and bigger. In the end, Chen Bei could only do it himself. It was almost night when the two of them were done. Why is it so lively outside? Shi Shang sat on the roof and looked at the brightly lit street in the distance. Chen Bei put the last tile in place. Today is the Lantern Festival here. Everyone will go to the street to look at the lanterns or guess the riddles. Do you want to go and take a look? Sure. Chen Bei went down first. Come down and change your clothes. I just changed this afternoon. She did not do anything this afternoon, and it was not dirty. Why would she change? Was it troublesome? Of course, Chen Bei did not mind the trouble. He insisted that Shi Shang change before going out. What if he had a daughter-in-law who liked to make him change his clothes? Asterisk, this is a fake group. Little fairy, throw a ticket at me to death. Cherub. No, we love you so much. How can we bear to throw a ticket at you to death? Little fairy, since you love me, give it to me. Cherub. Just throw it. Little fairy. Chapter 1639. This small town was not big, but it was very lively. The streets were full of lanterns, and the crowd was moving shoulder to shoulder. The theme of the lanterns was not a tacky meeting of lovers, but a blessing. Pray for the blessings of your family, friends, and loved ones. Oh, Xian Yang, you also brought your husband to see the blessing? A woman in an official's uniform stood on the street and shouted when she saw Shi Shang and Chen Bei coming over. Can't I? How can it not be? But you have to keep a close eye on him. There are many people watching your husband. The woman winked at Shi Shang. Don't let him be alone. Shi Shang went in another direction. Not far away, a woman was surrounded by people and was looking at her sinisterly. Got it. Shi Shang waved at her. Hey, by the way, this is the pear blossom wine made by my family. It tastes pretty good. The woman stopped Shi Shang and handed the packaged pear blossom wine to her. Then she said, Forget it, I'll put it at the door for you when I go back later. It's not convenient for you to bring it with you. Thank you. You're welcome. The shift is here. I'll leave first. The woman changed shifts with the other person. She waved goodbye to Shi Shang and went in the direction of her house. Shi Shang and Chen Bei went to the lively street. They're following us. Chen Bei whispered in Shi Shang's ear. Shi Shang smiled and did not say anything. He hugged him and went to the river in town. At this time, the river was colorful with the lanterns on both sides. There were still lanterns on the river, and they were slowly floating into the distance. Miss, they're going that way. Let's go. A few people sneakily followed behind Shi Shang. There were fewer and fewer people around. The person called Miss waved to the others, and a few thugs immediately rushed out to block the people in front. Isn't this young Master Chen Bei? What a coincidence. The woman pushed away the thugs blocking the way and looked at Chen Bei lecherously. What did young Master Chen Bei think about what I said to Chen Bei last time? I promise that you'll have a much better life with me than with her. You've met her? She came over to talk to me when you went to buy Chi Chiao pastry for me last time. Shi Shang put her hands on her hips. Why didn't you tell me? She had no idea that her daughter-in-law had met this woman. You were fighting with someone. I forgot about it. At that time, she almost tore down the shop. He was busy pulling her away, so he didn't remember about it. Remember, no matter when, your matters are the most important. Chen Bei nodded, indicating that he understood. The woman was ignored by the two of them and was even forcefully fed a mouthful of dog food. She expressed that she was very unhappy. "Hey, I say, young Master Chen Bei is such an exquisite person. He will suffer a lot with you. Why don't you give young Master Chen Bei to me? I'll give you a large sum of money. Will you suffer with me?" Shi Shang looked at Chen Bei. Chen Bei. He had just thrown a big bag of gold last night. Although he did not know how much was inside, it was definitely not a small amount. Chen Bei's silence made the woman opposite him think that he was unwilling. She immediately became smug. "You can't give young Master Chen Bei better, so you shouldn't tie him up." "Ah." Before the woman could finish her words, she was kicked into the river. The next second, there were a few splashes. Her followers also went into the river with her through thick and thin. Shi Shang stood on the shore and looked down at the people flopping in the river. "Do you think you can give him something that even I can't give him?" The woman only cared about flopping. How could she have the energy to answer Shi Shang? Shi Shang hugged Chen Bei and walked back. The sound of flopping behind them gradually subsided. The night wind was noisy and cold. "Your Majesty," Chen Bei sighed. "Anyone who covets you deserves to die." Chen Bei held her hand tightly and said in a low and hoarse voice, "Your Majesty, don't kill for me anymore." The night wind blew the intertwining of their black hair in the void. Shi Shang turned to face Chen Bei and smiled slightly. "I'm happy for you, worried for you, honored for you, and killed for you. I'm willing to do it." Xian Yang. Chen Bei pulled Shi Shang into his arms. "How could I have met you? Probably saved the Milky Way in my previous life." Shi Shang chuckled. She was such a good person that she could only meet after saving the Milky Way. Chen Bei let go of Shi Shang after a long time. "Let's go release the river lanterns." "Okay." There were many people releasing river lanterns. Shi Shang took Chen Bei downstream and found a place with fewer people to sit down. Chen Bei lit the river lanterns and slowly put them into the water. The dim yellow light of the river lanterns reflected on his face and coated it with a layer of warm light. Small flames danced in his eyes, making him look warm. Shi Shang held his cheeks. "What did you write?" Chen Bei put all the river lanterns into the water. He blinked his eyes and said softly, "I want you to stay by my side for a long time. I'm the only one in this life. Don't stain your hands with blood again. You're a little greedy. You allow me to be greedy, don't you? You're taking advantage of me." Shi Shang took out a river lantern from behind. "Guess what I wrote?" Chen Bei muttered and shook his head. "You don't have to tell me." Shi Shang kissed him on the cheek. "Are you afraid? Are you afraid that what I wrote is not what you think?" "Who's afraid?" Chen Bei pushed her away. "Release your river lantern." Shi Shang lit the river lantern and pushed it into the water. The river lantern swayed and merged with the large group. A breeze blew and the river lantern slowly turned in a different direction. The scribbled handwriting on it suddenly appeared, and a few words could be vaguely recognized. "If you don't let me down in this life, I'll accompany you in the next life. Baby, do you still remember what you said before?" When Chen Bei heard her call him baby, his heart skipped a beat. She usually would not call him that. She was either angry or... What did I say? Chen Bei moved back. "When we first met, you said that you would never fall in love with me." Shi Shang pulled him back. "Then what is it now, baby?" "Did I say that?" Chen Bei pretended to have lost his memory. "You must have remembered wrongly. I didn't say that." Shi Shang reached out to tickle him. "Are you sure?" "I really didn't say that." "No, Xianyang. Don't itch. Don't mess around. I said it, I said it. Stop tickling." Chen Bei was afraid of being tickled. He smiled and panted on the grass. His vision suddenly darkened, and the familiar face magnified in his eyes. The soft touch on his lips made his body tremble. Chen Bei's eyelashes fluttered, and he closed his eyes subconsciously, allowing the person on top of him to take what she wanted. The night breeze blew gently, and the blurry memories slowly became clear. A line connected the scattered images. He reached out and hugged the person on top of him tightly. With a top turn, he pressed the person under his body, changing from passive to active. Hey, let me tell you. Last night, I picked up a bag of gold. It fell from the sky and almost knocked me out. It was really a pie falling from the sky. Ha ha ha. Really? Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you? Shi Shang and Chen Bei looked up at the two people above them at the same time. They're gold. Shi Shang did not live long in this plane. The poison in her body had not been cured. The man in the bamboo hat did not tell her where the antidote was until he died. Chen Bei knew the reason why Shi Shang did not look for the antidote. She did not want to stay in these planes for so long, but she also wanted to spend more time with him. After she died, Chen Bei also followed her, leaving only the small courtyard where they used to live. Occasionally, there would be a jar of pear blossom wine by the door of the courtyard, placed there alone. * The 47th plane ended, without exception. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.